Chapter 520. A few minutes later, Song Yinshu returned to the living room. Seeing the serious expression on Tang Jingxuan's face, she pretended to be calm as she sat down opposite him. Speak. What's wrong? Or are you trying to slack off? Yinshu. Tang Jingxian sat up straight and looked at her in seriousness. I know everything that happened last night. Song Yinshu's body suddenly stiffened as an awkward expression appeared on her face. I don't know why you ignored everything, but I can't pretend that nothing happened. Tang Jingxian took a deep breath. Perhaps he was afraid of scaring Song Yinshu, so he spoke in a gentle tone. I simply want to understand what you're thinking. Song Yinshu froze for a moment before she let out a dry laugh. What do you mean by thinking? Don't tell me you took it seriously? Isn't it normal for an artist to have an affair with their manager? I know you drank too much, and I won't ask you to take responsibility. So, you simply need to get over it. After hearing this, Tang Jingxuan's heart sank. By the time he spoke again, his voice was so soft that he couldn't even hear himself. Really? That's normal. Don't overthink it. We are both adults. Everyone has needs. Oh, that may be what you're thinking. But I can't sleep with my manager and act like nothing happened. After all, you are my first woman, Tang Jingxian said in seriousness. I can't continue working with you like this. What do you mean by that? Song Yinshu's voice trembled a little. What I mean is, either you try getting along with me as a woman, or we don't have anything to do with each other. I don't want to make things so complicated. I'm not saying this because I want to take responsibility. I'm saying this because I think you might like me. That's why Song Yinshu froze without saying a word. Tang Jingxian smiled like he had understood something. He then stood up and left. However, before he left, he added, if you've thought it through, you can contact me. Where are you going? I'm tired. I want to get some rest, Tang Jingxian said before he left the apartment. As for where he was going, he had no idea. Her heart was a mess, but she couldn't think of a reason. Perhaps it was because of Song Yinshu's attitude, or perhaps it was because of her own impulsiveness. In his daze, he didn't notice that a car had changed lanes in front of him. He didn't have time to brake and crashed into the back of the other car. Translator. Editor. Even after Tang Jingxian left for quite some time, Song Yinshu still hadn't reacted. This was an important time for Tang Jingxian. The annual stocktaking and many important awards were being announced. He couldn't afford to slack off at a time like this. Song Yinshu panicked as she stood up. However, she received a phone call from the police station. Hello, do you know Tang Jingxian? What happened to Luo Xing? Come to the police station. He hit someone. As soon as Song Yinshu heard this, she was dumbfounded. But, a few seconds later, she pulled out her phone and gave Feng Yu a phone call. She couldn't allow any scandals to happen at a time like this. Vice Chairman Feng, this is a crucial time for Luo. We can't afford any accidents. Song Yinshu, where's your composure? Hearing Feng Yu's words, Song Yinshu tried her best to regain her composure. Vice President Feng, I'm sorry. Immediately go to the police station and deal with this matter. Suppress it. Okay, I'll go right away. Song Yinshu panicked because she knew that Tang Jingxuan's emotions must have been affected. She was afraid that something had happened to Tang Jingxian because of her. If that was really the case and something happened to Luo Xing, what would she do? With these complex emotions, Song Yinshu didn't know how she arrived at the police station. All she knew was, as soon as she saw that Tang Jingxian was safe and sound, tears began to flow from her eyes. Tang Jingxian also looked at Song Yinshu. But, before they could say a word, the police's questions pulled them back to reality. Obviously, you were driving illegally. I request to see the surveillance footage, Tang Jingxian replied. Tang Jingxian answered directly, I did bump into the other party, but I was going straight. The other party changed lanes. But the other party said that you were driving absent-mindedly and suspected that you were drunk or driving due to exhaustion. According to the surveillance footage we obtained at the time, he had already changed lanes, but you did not slow down when you saw him. I remember you're a singer, right? Don't celebrities need to follow traffic rules? The police pointed to Tang Jingxuan's nose and scolded. Since you're a public figure, you should be a role model. No matter how good your songs are, what's the point? Afraid that Tang Jingxian and the man would start an argument, Song Yinshu immediately ran over and stood in front of Tang Jingxian. Sorry, we'll be more careful next time. It's true that I didn't stop in time, but it's also true that he changed 2 lanes in a row and charged straight towards me without flashing his turn lights. You told me that you saw the surveillance footage. Fine, where was the road that I got into an accident on? Tang Jingxian argued. I'm a public figure, but does a public figure's pursuit of the truth mean that they're bullying ordinary people? The man obviously didn't expect Tang Jingxian to be so calculative, so he suddenly moved his round face to the side. And you? Why are you apologizing to him? Tang Jingxian turned and looked at Song Yinshu. Haven't I been wrongly accused enough? Do you think that I need you to step in every time to solve a problem? That's not what I meant. Song Yinshu, I've already made myself clear. You have been fired. From now on, you have no right to interfere in my business. After speaking, Tang Jingxian gave the Tang family's housekeeper a phone call. Song Yinshu took a few steps back in discomfort. She had never expected Tang Jingxian to say something like this. Your career is on the rise. Don't be stubborn. Why can't you appreciate the pain you've endured? I have the final say in my life. If you think that's good for me, you must be too full of yourself. After speaking, Tang Jingxian pointed to the door and said to Song Yinshu, you should leave while the reporters haven't surrounded you yet. Song Yinshu's heart ached. But, at this moment, she didn't know how to convince Tang Jingxian. So, all she could do was turn around and leave. Just like Tang Jingxian said, before the reporters arrived, she could still escape unscathed. The young lady is here to help you. Don't you think your words are too heartless? What do you know? Tang Jingxian yelled back at the police officer that was standing up for Song Yinshu. Since they were nothing, it was best to draw a line between them. This was for the best for both of them. It didn't take long before the housekeeper arrived at the police station to deal with the aftermath. Half an hour later, Tang Jingxian was finally allowed to leave. At this time, Song Yinshu watched helplessly as he was surrounded by the reporters. Chapter 521. Master 4. Where do you want to go now? After returning to the car, the housekeeper asked Tang Jingxian. Look at the reporters. They're chasing us relentlessly. Why don't we go back to the Tang family home? Tang Jingxian leaned back in his seat and nodded. I don't want to care about anything right now. I just want to sleep. What's wrong? Nothing. I just want to slack off for a bit. After speaking, Tang Jingxian did not immediately close his eyes. Instead, he gave Feng Yu a phone call. I want to get a new manager. What's going on between you and Song Yinshu? Feng Yu immediately sensed something was wrong with Tang Jingxuan's tone. Nothing. I just can't work with her anymore. Tang Jingxian replied firmly. Hurry up and get me a new manager. It would be best if it's a man. I'll help you arrange it. Feng Yu did not force Tang Jingxian. He could hear the tiredness in his voice. Although he didn't know what happened between the two, he knew that separating them was the best solution. After receiving his answer, Tang Jingxian closed his eyes in relief. By the time he woke up, he was already back at Tangkor's villa. Singer Luo Xing involved in traffic accident, knocked over person and dragged 100 meters. Luo Xing appears at police station on suspicion of drunk driving and recording his statement. Luo Xing drove illegally. Tangkor's fourth master helping him cover up scandal? It was the end of the year, and all sorts of awards were being contested. If Luo Xing was caught up in a scandal at this time, then everything that belonged to him could end up being given to someone else. How could his competitors let go of an explosive piece of news at a time like this? So, even though Hai Rue used their PR, Tang Jingxuan's incident was not suppressed. After all, his identity was complicated and couldn't be compared to the average person. From that day onwards, Tang Jingxian did not return to the apartment he had prepared for himself. No matter how big the incident got, and no matter how much the public criticized him, he refused to show his face. At the same time, Song Yinshu received a phone call from Feng Yu. I've already sent another manager to deal with Luo Xing. You can take care of another artist for now. Although Song Yinshu expected this, she still couldn't help but smile bitterly. Luo Xing doesn't want to see me. If that's the case, then let's avoid each other. It's good for both of us. He's now surrounded by scandals, so we can't have any more scandals. Song Yinshu did not refute. She knew, As long as Fang Yu said it, it was the best for the two of them. I will arrange for PR to follow up. You don't need to worry about this matter. No matter how bad Luo Xing is, he still has Tongning backing him. Nothing will happen to him. Just focus on doing your job, Fang Yu instructed. I understand, Song Yinshu replied in seriousness. However, even though she was no longer Luo Xing's manager, she still couldn't help but want to do something for him. Luo Xing had a bright future ahead of him. He couldn't let it be destroyed so easily. As soon as Tongning found out, her first reaction was that Tang Jingshuan's actions were a little strange. He actually wanted to replace Song Yinshu. Plus, from what she could see, the fact that Tang Jingxian had replaced Song Yinshu was a lot more serious than the scandal that was currently going around. So, she called Tang Jingxian. Are you at home? I can't go anywhere now, Tang Jingxian replied casually. Why did you replace Yinshu? Tongning asked straightforwardly without beating around the bush. Did you bully her? Sis, I was the one that was wronged. Did you know that? Tang Jingxian couldn't help but sit up in bed and tell Tongning everything that happened between the two of them. So, the person that was abandoned was me? After hearing Tang Jingshuan's story, Tongning couldn't help but laugh. I still remember when you were young. A fortune teller once told you that your love life would be difficult and that you would end up alone for the rest of your life. At that time, you directly threw a rock at the old man's head and yelled that you were the one that would end up alone and that I wanted to marry 2 wives. I can't believe you still remember something as embarrassing as that, Tang Jingxian laughed. Since that's the case, I won't try to stop you. You've already made your decision, so you should move forward bravely. I'm sure Yinshu has her reasons. Tongning never thought that Song Yinshu was the type of person that would play around with a person's feelings. I understand, sis. Let's not talk about this anymore. I still have a meeting at the office tomorrow morning. Tongning understood that Tang Jingxian didn't like to nag, so she did not continue to stress and let him rest. But, afterwards, she still felt it was a little strange. According to normal logic, Song Yinshu should have liked Tang Jingxian. So, why did she suddenly retreat after they had a physical relationship? They still had to meet at the office tomorrow. With this thought in mind, Tang Jingxian closed his eyes and fell asleep. The next day, Tang Jingshuan's popularity did not decrease. Although no one at Hai Rui was pointing fingers at him, they didn't have the same warm smile that they used to have. The entertainment industry was this realistic. There was no need to act noble. Afterwards, Tang Jingxian pushed open the door and entered Fang Yu's office. At this time, Song Yinshu was standing in front of Fang Yu's desk with a newcomer. The topic of their conversation was about an event that had seen Luo Xing's scandal and requested for him to be replaced. In the end, they had their eyes on a young member from another group at Hai Rui. I'm going to leave first. Tang Jingshuan's expression did not look good. He originally wanted to turn around, but Fang Yu stopped him. Wait for a bit. Luo Xing, I have nothing to hide from you. Out of consideration for the agency, I will first arrange for your role to be given to someone else. After all, opportunities wait for no man. I understand, that's why I'm leaving. Tang Jingxian nodded his head in understanding. Why do I feel like you aren't the least bit nervous about the blow to your singing career? Luo Xing, tell me, what are you thinking right now? Fang Yu's eyes were sharp. He could easily tell that the two were avoiding each other. Afterwards, Tang Jingxian shook his head and replied, I want to get some rest right now. I'll leave everything to your PR department. Yinshu, take your people outside and wait for me. I still have a few personal things to say to Luo Xing. Song Yinshu nodded her head as she led her newcomer out of Fang Yu's office. Although this was official business, she had become someone else's manager, and the first thing she did was steal his job. She wanted to know if he was upset. You must be upset, right? Fang Yu could tell from the look on Tang Jingshuan's face that his manager had only been gone for a day. You were the one that decided to replace him. All I can say is, you deserve it. I didn't say anything, Tang Jingxian scoffed. I never regret the decisions I make. In that case, do you know what Yinshu said to me a moment ago? Fang Yu crossed his arms and looked into Tang Jingshuan's eyes with a deeper meaning. Chapter 522. Tang Jingxian did not say a word. He understood Song Yinshu. Under these circumstances, she wouldn't take advantage of him. It seems, You still trust Song Yinshu? Fang Yu smiled. Fang Yu smiled as he stood up from his office chair and sat down in front of Tang Jingxian. He then crossed his arms across his chest. So, can you tell me what happened between you and Song Yinshu? This is my bottom line. I don't want to talk about it. There was no way Tang Jingxian was going to tell everyone that he and Song Yinshu had an intimate relationship. It would hurt her feelings. Okay, fine. Fang Yu shrugged his shoulders and stood up from the sofa. Luo Xing, there's no doubt that you are serious when you sing. But it doesn't mean that you aren't fooling around. Do you know what the biggest difference between you and your sister 3 is? Tang Jingxian looked at Fang Yu in confusion. Sense of responsibility. Your sister 3 always uses a watertight method to protect the people around her. She treasures those that have helped her in the past and would never allow anyone that has helped her to come to any harm. But you can't do that. You obviously know how responsible Yinshu is for you. Yet you ended up hurting her by chasing her away. After hearing this, Tang Jingxian moved his lips a little, but he had no way to refute. If you compare your ability to handle matters to Tongning's, you are still far from it. At least, when it comes to professionalism, even if she is facing an enemy, she will smile and complete her task with the best attitude. But what about you? If Yinshu withdraws, it means that your long-term plans will have to stop. Do you want others to pay for your stubbornness? Tang Jingxian lowered his head and thought for a moment. Go home and think about what you should do to truly treat Yinshu well. He was well aware of what happened between Fang Yu and Hua Jingjing in the past. When it came to protecting his wife, Fang Yu definitely had the right to do so. After all, at Beijing Airport, he had protected the woman he loved the most from harm. This time, Tang Jingxian had no intention of refuting. Fang Yu had already used the 2 people he cared about the most to help him brainwash. I finally understand the reason why Hai Rui's PR will never lose. This time, it was Fang Yu's turn to be confused. Because you're here. This was the experience and connections that Fang Yu had accumulated over the years. It was a place where he should shine, so Tang Jingxian did not feel embarrassed at all. At the same time, he was thinking about what Fang Yu had said. If Fang Yu removed Song Yinshu from his contract, it meant he would need to renegotiate a lot of work. On the way home, Tang Jingxian kept thinking about Fang Yu's words. In the end, he decided to turn around and drive straight to Song Yinshu's apartment. However, just as he reached the entrance, he was stopped by a young man. Tang Jingxian was confused, but the man said to Tang Jingxian seriously, "Let's go sit in your car." "Who are you?" Tang Jingxian asked directly. "I am Yinshu's goal for so many years." The man shoved Tang Jingxian into the car. Tang Jingxian vaguely remembered this man. He was wearing a long black coat and had a pair of black glasses on the bridge of his nose. But strangely, even this outfit from 10 years ago looked so harmonious and gentle on him. "What's going on?" "Yinshu." The man turned his head to look at Tang Jingxian and said calmly, "Yinshu has always stuck to me since we were young. Unfortunately, all these years, I've always treated her like a good sister. But your appearance made me realize a more serious problem. I rejected her for 11 years, but am I really that indifferent to her? She's excellent at her job. All these years, she's worked so hard to stand by my side one day. So, I hope you can understand what kind of existence you are to Yinshu. Don't have any delusions." The other party's words were very straightforward, and they sounded like thorns. Tang Jingxian thought for a moment and finally raised his head. "You can get off now. It's not up to you to tell me what to do." Tang Jingxian retorted. "Also, after rejecting someone for 11 years, you finally realized that the person you like wasn't really in love with you. Instead, it was because someone invaded your territory and you just felt uncomfortable." The expression on the other party's face turned ugly. "But, don't worry, I will indeed keep my distance from Song Yinshu, not because of you." After speaking, Tang Jingxian gestured for the man to get out of the car. The man had no idea that Tang Jingxian had such a domineering personality. So, there was a hint of self-humiliation in his eyes. Tang Jingxian glanced at the man. Seeing that he still hadn't gotten out of the car, he stepped out, walked around the front of the car, and dragged the man out from the front passenger seat. Soon, he disappeared from the man's sight. To be honest, it would be a lie to say that Tang Jingxian wasn't moved by the man's words. But Tang Jingxian knew that he couldn't cross the line with Song Yinshu. After Tang Jingxian left, the man immediately returned to Song Yinshu's apartment. What did you forget? Yinshu, I think we should have a talk, the man said as he held onto the door. I let you in out of courtesy, but I don't want you to have a pass. Song Yinshu maintained her smile. Song Yinshu maintained her smile the entire time, but her words were filled with mockery and disdain. It's already been 11 years. I'm sure you know that. But I can't forget the fact that you've been eyeing my eyes. Did you want to use them to save the woman you love? The man remained silent, unable to say a word. I'm sorry, I'm not that great. Hurry and leave. No, not this time. This time, it's because I really like you and want to be with you. Faced with the man's deep emotions, Song Yinshu simply smiled. Everyone knows that you are a top manager. You must have put in a lot of effort into Luo Xing's matter, right? Although Song Yinshu quickly sent the man away, Tang Jingxian also left with him. She didn't know that Tang Jingxian had been here, did she? If she did, she would have already chased after him barefooted. There was a saying, as the saying goes, as time goes by, as time goes by. As soon as Tongning heard that Tang Jingshuan's resources had been stolen, she immediately gave her troublesome brother a phone call. Did Fang Yu bully you? No, I gave up my resources on my own accord. Tang Jingxian, have you noticed that you've been acting a little strange lately? Is it all because of Yinshu? Can't you pull yourself together and solve a problem for me? Tongning's tone became heavier. Chapter 523. Sis, I've actually been thinking about something for the past few days. Tang Jingxian continued after a short pause. Perhaps I'm more suited to earning money. So, I want to wait until after your film is released and on my last concert on December 8th to announce my retirement from the entertainment industry. Tongning actually understood that Tang Jingxian had never been suited for the entertainment industry. He refused to give up on his kind nature, yet he was always met with evil. Have you thought it through? You should know how much Yinshu wants to see you become an evergreen tree in the music industry. I've thought it through. One Xia Jingyi and one Song Yinshu was enough for him. In this materialistic industry, he didn't want his future love life to be filled with disguises and secrets. When you make a choice, no matter if it's right or wrong, you still have to walk it to the end. This was Tongning's advice. In this world, it wasn't difficult to make a choice. It was difficult to bear the consequences of making a choice. I will be there on time for WHS public premiere. I wish you all the best for your film. After speaking, Tang Jingxian hung up the phone. However, after making the decision, his entire body relaxed. It was like he was finally able to float to the surface after being submerged for a long time and take a deep breath. Song Yinshu was also going to be there to support WH. Of course, she was also going to be there with that man. Late at night, Tongning leaned into Mo Ting's embrace as they flipped through parenting books. At this time, Tongning suddenly said, Jingxian has decided to retire from the entertainment industry. He's lasted long enough. Mo Ting was not surprised. He doesn't know how to socialize, and he can't let go of his kindness. In this industry, there's no other path for him to choose. Most importantly, if he returns to Tangkor, he can help lessen the burden on Mom. I'm guessing you have your eyes on that last option, right? You don't want me to work too hard. You can say that. Mo Ting nodded his head. Mo Ting nodded his head without hiding anything. He chose this path. Let him walk it on his own. By the time he is covered in injuries and calluses, he will know what to do to protect himself. Okay. Tongning was convinced by Mo Ting. After all, this was Tang Jingshuan's path to begin with. So, when do you plan to announce my pregnancy? Mo Ting put down the parenting book and hugged his wife to sleep. If possible, I'd rather no one find out. That way, you and the baby won't be disturbed. That doesn't seem realistic. Tongning couldn't help but laugh. After all, how many people are staring at my stomach? I'm rumored to be infertile. Don't talk nonsense. Close your eyes and sleep. Mo Ting hugged Tongning tightly. Even though they were already an old married couple, his arms were still the same as they were when they first got married. They had never changed. He would not change, nor did he dare to change. Because, in this lifetime, he wanted Tangning to stay by his side. Only then would his life be complete. Meanwhile, after Tang Jingxian decided to retire from the entertainment industry, his footsteps became much more relaxed because he no longer had any burdens on him. In the past, it was all for the singing career that he loved. But now, he needed to learn to shoulder his own responsibilities and give his all like a man. Apart from Tangning, he did not tell anyone about his decision to retire. He was confident that Mo Ting would support him and not make things difficult for him over his contract. For him, the entertainment industry was once beautiful, but it was now a shackle that he desperately wanted to break free from. A few days later, WH was released to the public. Hai Rui held a screening ceremony and invited many of their friends from the industry to attend. As a highly anticipated film, many theaters arranged for midnight screenings. After all, a blockbuster film like this would usually receive a good response from midnight onwards. However, the strange thing was, the main cast of WH only sent a few supporting actors. Whether it was the director or the male and female leads, none of them seemed to have any intention of making an appearance at such an important event. The person that just entered the venue is our popular superstar, Luo Xing. From the looks of it, he's here to support our Tangning. He's getting more and more handsome. The MC outside the stage welcomed the guests with great enthusiasm. However, Tang Jingxian attended the event on his own. Rumor had it that after his manager was replaced, he was robbed of his resources. The car accident incident also hurt him quite a bit. But he was still Tangning's brother. Even the fallen stars didn't dare disrespect Tang Jingxian for Tangning's sake. Tang Jingxian entered the VIP theater on his own and sat down in the seat with his name on it. However, the thing that made him feel a little uncomfortable was the fact that Song Yanshu was sitting in the same row, and there were only two people to his right. Song Yanshu seemed to have expected him to appear, so she was not surprised at all. Her eyes were dim like there was a lot she wanted to say to Tang Jingxian, but at the same time, she felt like she had been wronged. Tang Jingxian pretended not to see Song Yanshu. Before the film even started, he was already flipping through his phone and chatting with other singers. But because of their awkward relationship, the people in the back row couldn't help but start gossiping. Hey, do you guys know who the man and woman sitting in front of us are? It seems the rumors are true. The two have fallen out. Men always change when they want to. Look at how much Song Yanshu has sacrificed for Luo Xing. But what did she get in the end? Forget it. I think Song Yanshu also wants to be famous. So, she took advantage of this opportunity to get a little bit of fame. All in all, it's quite amusing that things have gotten to this point. The crowd behind them began to point at the couple. As they weren't all from Hai Rui, Tang Jingxian couldn't deal with them properly. All he could do was sit quietly and listen to the gossip. Not long after, Tang Jingxian received a message from Song Yanshu. She simply said, "Let's have a talk. What do you want to talk about? About compensation or about canceling your contract? Luo Xing, can you not give up on yourself like this? I don't like it when you're like this." Then, what do you like about me? Tang Jingxian asked shamelessly. But before Song Yanshu could respond, he gave his own answer. I think we've already made things clear. I don't think the 11 years you've worked so hard have anything to do with me. So, I won't think too highly of myself. Song Yanshu froze. She suddenly didn't know how to respond. Everything was because of that one night. If everything had not been revealed, perhaps she and Tang Jingxian would have had a different ending. But from now on, was this all she and Luo Xing could do? Chapter 524. The film lasted a total of 127 minutes, and the atmosphere was tense for the entire 127 minutes. Many people from the industry attended the premiere with a supportive attitude, but deep down, they were thinking, I want to see what kind of shocking film Tangning, who has only acted in one film, and a newcomer director who hasn't even acted in one film, will make. I want to see if it is as touching as the promotional video claims. But, in reality, after watching the film, everyone was silent. It seemed, it took a long time for them to recover from the horror of the film. At the end of the film, it seemed, WH was definitely going to have a sequel. Tang Jingxian noticed that there were a lot of people present. After watching the film, His forehead was covered in cold sweat. Of course, after looking around, he suddenly smiled. He was well aware of how successful Tongning's portrayal of the female author was. It was as if, upon entering the screen, she was the only person alive. A few times, I was shocked by Tongning's reaction. It was like she had actually experienced something like this before. It was scary. She was chased, and then she was on the run. Tongning was covered in blood from head to toe. She must have worked too hard. I can't see any trace of Tongning at all. This film is definitely worth watching. Bai Chendong is also amazing as a psycho. No wonder he is a national treasure. Hearing all the positive comments, Tang Jingxian suddenly felt that Tongning's previous efforts had been worth it. This time, she was definitely the female lead. In fact, she portrayed the female author in a way that was full of character and courage. Those who wanted to see what was going on could not help but shut their mouths after the movie ended. They could clearly feel the difference between them. Bai Chendong and Tongning were both born to act. No matter how big of a burden they had, they could throw it all away and put 100% of their energy into their roles. As for Zaheo, because of the impact of Western culture, he did not care about commercial value. He simply wanted to shoot a good film. With these three people gathered together, WH did not disappoint. After the premiere, the people from the industry began to accept interviews from the reporters. One after another, they expressed their admiration for the entire cast and crew of WH and hoped that the film would be a hit. But when it came to Tang Jingxian, the reporter asked another sensitive question. Luo Xing, rumor has it that you've replaced your manager. Is it because of a change of heart? Luo Xing, tonight you and your ex-manager sat on the same row but didn't say a word. Is it because your relationship broke down? Luo Xing, I heard your former manager has found another artist and snatched away your resources. Are you aware of this? In the face of the reporter's gossipy questions, Tang Jingxian just elegantly and calmly asked everyone, was the movie good? I feel that everyone seems to be here to attend the public screening, so please forgive me for now. There will be a more suitable time and place in the future anyway. In that case, Luo Xing, can you tell us how Tongning is doing? Do you keep in touch? This question seemed to be quite gentle. Tang Jingxian pondered for a moment before replying with a smile. Don't worry, she's doing well. Just as Tang Jingxian was about to leave, a cry of surprise came from the other corner of the theater. Everyone's gaze was drawn over, including Tang Jingshuan's. You caused our Yijie to fall. Is this how Hai Rui treats their managers? Amongst the crowd, 3 women were surrounded. One was weakly leaning against a chubby woman, and the one on the left was Song Yenshu. I didn't do it on purpose. I apologized to Yijie. Song Yenshu politely apologized as she had been taught. Yijie has already fallen. If those photos get leaked and affect her, will you take responsibility? The woman asked as she poked Song Yenshu in the head. The woman poked Song Yenshu in the head. Of course, they weren't employees of Hai Rui. So, they weren't afraid of emoting. I can take responsibility. How are you going to take responsibility? You deserve to be replaced by Luo Xing. After hearing this, Song Yenshu's expression once again turned ugly. Previously, you shamelessly threw yourself at a man and caused such a commotion that the entire city knew about it. But now, no one is going to help you. In order not to become the center of attention, the woman suggested they settle the matter in the waiting room, and Song Yenshu agreed. But Tang Jingxian witnessed the entire scene and saw her clench her fists. This world was made for the strong. If the woman didn't have the guts to bully an artist from Hai Rui, then for a mere manager to be caught by a slightly higher-level actor, she could only blame herself for being unlucky. But, just as they were about to leave, Tang Jingxian suddenly stretched out his hand and blocked their way. Where are you going? It seems, Luo Tianwang has decided to stand up for Song Yenshu. Seeing the woman smirk, Tang Jingxian took a step back and said, I don't think you have the right to teach a lesson to someone from Hai Rui. Song Yenshu looked at Tang Jingxian with a complicated expression. But Tang Jingxian ignored her and pretended not to see her eyes. You're still embroiled in a scandal, yet you're sticking your nose into someone else's business? Tang Jingxian couldn't be bothered talking to the woman, so he pulled Song Yenshu behind him and protected her. Yijie, give me some face. It's not easy to survive in the industry. The woman called Ejia flipped her long black hair and shrugged. As long as you can guarantee that I won't end up on the headlines tomorrow because of a fall. No problem, Tang Jingxian nodded. Right now, it was time to discuss Tongning and W.H. Who would want to see an actress that had been in the industry for so many years, yet had never even won a newcomer award? Fine, this is what you promised. Ejia did not pursue the matter as she waved her hand and left with her manager. Soon, only Tang Jingxian and Song Yinshu remained in the theater. Tang Jingxian placed his hands in his pockets. He had no intention of speaking to Song Yinshu. He simply sighed and prepared to leave. At this time, Song Yinshu quickly held him back. Let's have a talk. I'm still trying to help you hold on to the remaining 2 concerts. No need, Tang Jingxian replied. Luoxing, some things aren't as simple as you think. Can you not give up on yourself like this? I know I've let Ningjie down. I want to make up for it. Make up for it? What did you do wrong? Tang Jingxian laughed in self-ridicule. Don't force yourself because of me. If I say it's no need, then it's no need. He had already announced his retirement, so what was the point of attending so many fan meetings? Chapter 525. Luoxing. This time, Tang Jingxian once again turned around, but he did not look back. Emotions made him feel tired. So, he decided he needed a good rest. Song Yinshu watched as Tang Jingxian left, but she had no right to stop him. She was no longer related to him. She could barely be considered as his ex-manager. Tang Jingxian entered the underground parking lot alone. After that, he saw Sister Yi and her agent in the garage. Luoxing, do you have time for a drink? I'm sorry, Ejia. How about another day? Tang Jingxian rejected. Aren't you afraid that I'll cause trouble for your ex-manager again? Ejia asked Tang Jingxian with a dignified and generous smile. It's just one drink. In fact, I can guarantee that it will only be one drink. Tang Jingxian wasn't stupid. Of course, he knew what Ejia's motive was. She was already quite old, but her acting skills were still mediocre. She had always been a supporting actress, so of course, she was anxious. After all, for an actor, if they didn't have the ability, they needed to have youth and a pretty face. If they didn't have either, then they would have to rely on external factors. For example, Tang Jingxian was the current king of entertainment and had always been a hot topic. He was also the 4th master of Tang Kor and Tongning's younger brother. As long as his name was mentioned, it was bound to attract attention. No wonder Ejia had her eyes on Tang Jingxian. She wanted to create hype. Tang Jingxian closed the car door and stared coldly at Sister Yi, who was sitting opposite him. His eyes were filled with disgust for scheming. Okay, but I will decide the location. Tang Jingxian laughed. Seeing Tang Jingxuan's straightforwardness, Ejia quickly nodded her head in fear that he would regret his decision. Okay, please get in the car. Tang Jingxian walked over to the back door of the sports car and opened it like a gentleman, allowing Ejia and her manager to board. Afterwards, the corners of his lips curved upwards into a mocking smile. Before he drove off, he pulled out his phone and sent a text message. Ejia's real name was Zhao Qini. In reality, she was around the same age as Emoting. But, perhaps because she wanted to attract attention, she dressed up in a mature and dignified manner. In fact, it made her look 5 years older. Afterwards, the car sped down the road. As they were heading to an unfamiliar place, Ejia immediately asked, "Where are we going?" "To a place you never expected." Zhao Qini thought that Tang Jingxian was lusting after her and wanted to take advantage of the situation to bring her home, so she couldn't help but feel a little smug. Soon, Tang Jingxian unknowingly drove the car into Hyatt Regency and entered the high-class villa that Zhao Qini had never been to before. "We're here, get out of the car." Tang Jingxian pulled open the car door and gestured for Zhao Qini and Emoting to step out. "This is your home?" Zhao Qini looked at the villa in front of her, which was decorated with Spanish palaces, and was shocked. "You'll know when you get in." Tang Jingxian smiled and led the 2 of them to the front door of the villa. Of course, because Tongning knew beforehand, she left the door open for him so he could easily open it. This further confirmed Zhao Qini's suspicions that this was Tang Jingxuan's current residence. After all, Not many people had actually entered Hyatt Regency. The security here was extremely tight, and it was impossible for anyone to sneak in. Even the most experienced paparazzi wouldn't be able to escape the security system of the entire estate. However, as soon as they stepped into the villa, Zhao Qini froze in place. Tongning reclined on the sofa, lazily leaning against the cushion as she hugged a soft pillow in her arms. Of course, it was to cover her stomach. Most importantly, she was wearing a white turtleneck sweater, and her black hair was tied up in a bun. She exuded an otherworldly aura that made one feel envious and couldn't help but steal a few more glances. She was obviously a few years older than Tongning. But, in front of Tongning, Zhao Qini seemed to feel inferior. The feeling of inferiority spread from the depths of her heart to her limbs. I heard Miss Zhao invited my brother for a drink. Since you're both going to drink, why don't you come over to my place? Tongning said in a gentle voice. Please have a seat. Make yourself at home. But, in reality, who would dare to treat this place as their home? Tongning on her own was enough to strike fear into people's hearts. Not to mention, Ting was backing her up. It's getting late. I think I'll come back another day. Zhao Qini's voice trembled a little. Perhaps, even she realized she had lost her composure. I sleep late anyway, it's fine. Tongning replied slowly, like she was purposely trying to torment Zhao Qini. I think I should go. Zhao Qini couldn't help but be afraid of Tongning's aura. So, all she could do was run away. However, just as she turned around, Tongning suddenly called out to her. Ijia, I don't like to quit halfway through a game. Since it's already started, you should follow the rules. Tongning stood up. Her voice was no longer as casual as before. Instead, it was fierce and imposing. From now on, if you see Luo Xing, it's best you take a detour. Otherwise, I will end your life. If you want to use this opportunity to increase your exposure, you can go look for someone else. I have no objections. But don't provoke my brother. Otherwise, don't even think about becoming famous in your next life, let alone in this one. Zhao Qini turned around and bowed to Tongning. I understand. Next time, if you want to ask my brother out for a drink, you can come straight to Hyatt Regency. He is a bit busy, but I am a bit free at the moment. Tongning raised an eyebrow. Ijia, what do you think? Ijia was a little surprised, but in the end, she nodded her head obediently. At this moment, apart from fear, there was no room for anything else in her heart. Tongning, this supermodel, this actress and this mysterious character had completely exceeded her understanding of women. I will listen to you. Tongning laughed mockingly and did not say another word. This time, she simply wanted Zhao Qini to wake up to reality. In this world, not every bad idea could be taken advantage of. There would always be an Oriole lurking behind. As he watched the two women flee, Tang Jingxian stood to one side, wanting to laugh, but not daring to. It was only after the two women had left that he revealed a rare smile. Jia, your aura is quite impressive. You are able to suppress people. So, you didn't even ask your brother-in-law before you brought her here? Tongning glared at him. Chapter 526. Who told you to be fast, accurate, and ruthless? Tang Jingxian gave Tongning a thumbs up before he sat down on the sofa and continued. I've watched W.H. Sis, you are amazing. I don't think anyone in this world is more suitable to be an actress than you. I've also watched the other films. To be honest, although the other popular female leads are all good at acting, they aren't as amazing as you. Are you saying this because I am your sister? Tongning subconsciously furrowed her brows. This is what I truly feel. Tongning had not seen the film yet, so she couldn't understand how she felt. You haven't seen it yet, right? After you've seen it, you will be impressed by yourself. Just as Tang Jingxian was getting excited, he saw Ting walk out of the study dressed in a black turtleneck. His steps were steady and powerful like a king. Don't you want your sister to get some rest? What time is it already? Tang Jingxian knew this was the limit of Ting's patience, so he quickly stood up from the sofa and waved his hand. I'm leaving. Sis, get some rest and help me send my regards to my nephew. Tang Ning watched as Tang Jingxian sped off and finally revealed a helpless smile. She then held onto Imo Ting's hand and said coquettishly, "I understand. I won't do it again. We can't just leave him like this, right?" Imo Ting did not say a word as his eyes sparkled like diamonds. This bastard kept causing trouble every other day. It was time to find a way to deal with him. WH breaks $100 million box office on first day. Reputation and popularity skyrocket. WH breaks new record for fastest domestic film to break $100 million. WH has heaven-defying numbers. It turns out, domestic disaster films still have a chance. After watching WH, I didn't feel scared or disappointed. I felt like crying tears of joy. I didn't expect to see such a dedicated director and such excellent actors in my lifetime. I can't help but praise the monsters in WH, for their acting skills are better than the current celebrities. The plot is well-balanced. The dialogue is meticulous. The action scenes are shocking and the special effects are conscientious. Bai Chendong's acting is as good as ever. No wonder he is a national treasure. Tang Ning's explosive power is amazing. I was shocked a few times by her reaction. It was like I was in the real world. She is amazing. From now on, I will definitely watch all of her films. Although I don't like disaster films and find it depressing, it is a fact that Tang Ning's acting beats all the other popular actresses. Online, most of the reviews for WH were positive. This was because the entire production team had put their heart and soul into this film. They were extremely sincere in their approach to producing a good film. The Fei Tian Awards are about to be announced. It's a good film and a good actress. Although the other movies were good, WH really shocked me. In the past, I always thought that Chinese disaster movies were for idiots, but WH has given me hope. It's a good movie with good actors. As WH continued to run, Tang Ning's popularity and reputation once again rose to new heights. She used her attitude and professionalism to prove to everyone that she was a trustworthy actress. Of course, because of the reputation of WH, Tang Ning's supporters far surpassed the other popular actresses. Everyone was discussing this year's Fei Tian Awards and believed she had the highest chance of winning. Late at night, Tang Ning finally awoke from her drowsiness. To her surprise, Imo Ting was sitting on the edge of her bed and staring into her eyes. "You're back? Why didn't you wake me up?" I couldn't bear to. Imo Ting carried Tang Ning in his arms and led her into the wardrobe. "Get changed. We need to go somewhere." "Huh?" Imo Ting did not explain. He simply wrapped Tang Ning tightly in his clothes and led her into the car. Tang Ning had no idea what Imo Ting was planning. Until they arrived at the cinema. What if someone finds out? Tang Ning looked around anxiously. "I've already made arrangements. The two of us will be the first to enter and the last to leave. No one will notice us." Imo Ting smiled as he led Tang Ning into the VIP theater. "Today, we will watch a film like a normal couple. The name of the film is WH. I'm sure Mrs. Imo has heard of it before." Tang Ning froze for a moment as her heart suddenly warmed up. She knew how busy Imo Ting had been recently, but Imo Ting always placed her first. He even remembered something as simple as not watching WH. "I don't think my acting is good enough." "It's not up to you to decide." Imo Ting helped her sit down as people began to stream into the theater. Originally, she thought it would only be a few people and the attendance wouldn't be too high. But less than a minute after the film started, the theater was already filled to the brim. There were no empty seats. Tang Ning could even hear the whispers from the rows in front and behind her. "Wow, it's a full house." Of course, with such a good reputation, it would be strange if it wasn't full. Let me tell you, this is the third time I've watched it. The first time I watched it myself, the second time I invited my family, and the third time I invited my friends. Is it really that good? You will definitely cry from the shock. Hearing these words, Tang Ning felt proud and excited. At the same time, she felt nervous. She knew, from now on, these people would have even higher expectations of her. Soon, all the spotlights in the theater were switched off as the film began to flash on the large screen. During the entire 100 minutes, even Tang Ning couldn't help but clench her fists for the female lead. It was a wonderful feeling. Ting observed her reaction from start to finish and suddenly felt Tongning had such a cute side to her. Chapter 527. Ting watched intently from start to finish. This was Tongning's first female lead in every sense of the word. Tongning looked at Ting nervously. A moment later, a gentle smile appeared on his face. "Why are you looking at me like that?" "I want to hear your opinion," Tongning replied. "Because you know best how to evaluate an actor. Is it my honor to be admired by Mrs. Ting wrapped his arm around Tongning and placed his chin on top of her head. "I don't actually want to say anything. Everyone here is expressing their feelings towards this film, and I am just one of them. Ning, you've already done very well. From now on, you can do even better. With WH, you can definitely win the Fei Tian Best Newcomer Award." Ting wasn't trying to comfort her. He was speaking the truth. In fact, Tongning's abilities had exceeded his expectations, especially when she was acting with Bei Chendong. The tension between the two was so intense that everyone could feel the thrill of the action. The Best Newcomer Award. This was the dream of all newcomers, and Tongning was no exception. Otherwise, she wouldn't be looking forward to it. However, just as her film WH was being screened, the media suddenly released an explosive piece of news. The Little Heavenly King, Luo Xing, was dating an unknown actress, Zhao Qini, who was 10 years older than him. In fact, there was even a photo of them in a car together. Apparently, Zhao Qini even entered Hyatt Regency with Luo Xing to get Tongning's approval. "Yijie doesn't seem to be trustworthy," Tongning said with a hint of ridicule. "Not necessarily. She doesn't have the guts," Ting said as he stared into Tongning's eyes. "She might even be used. Let Jingxian handle it himself." This time, Tongning had no intention of getting involved. But, to everyone's surprise, Tang Jingxian was supposed to step out and explain himself. After all, so many fans were attracted to him because he was young and handsome. Now that he was being rumored to be 10 years older than him, his fragile heart would be shattered. "I hope Luo Xing can step out and clarify everything. Why would such an old woman want to ruin my Luo Xing? Luo Xing, are you blind? If this is true, I will stop being your fan. Zhao Qini is too shameless. Is she trying to rob the cradle?" The official websites of Luo Xing's fan club and various fan clubs were flooded with comments. Thanks to his relationship with Tongning, Luo Xing was going to stay on the hot search list for a few more days. So, when Fang Yu directly asked him for his opinion, he simply replied, "I was originally going to sing one last show anyway. Reputation doesn't matter. Let's just help Yijie out." Fang Yu used his right hand to support his left elbow as he leaned against the floor-to-ceiling glass and replied, "This matter indeed has nothing to do with Zhao Qini. She was sold out by her manager. Otherwise, it would not have been revealed so many days after the incident. This is obviously because they are short on money. Are you okay?" "Huh." Tang Jingxian didn't quite understand what Fang Yu meant. "I'm referring to her. Don't you care what she thinks?" Fang Yu hinted at Song Yinshu. Tang Jingxian looked at Fang Yu in a daze. It seemed he had not thought about the consequences. But, a moment later, he regained his composure and shook his head. "This is my business. It has nothing to do with her." "Fine, as you wish," Fang Yu sighed. "If you have time, you should write some songs. After all, the agency has spent a lot of money on you. You need to put in some effort for your brother-in-law to be able to establish his authority in front of others." "I understand." After chatting with Fang Yu for a while, Tang Jingxian left Fang Yu's office. However, at the end of the corridor, he spotted Song Yinshu anxiously leaning against the railing. Tang Jingxian pretended not to see her. Just as he was about to walk in the opposite direction, Song Yinshu turned her head and spotted him. "Luo Xing, what's the matter?" Tang Jingxian asked calmly. "Don't you plan to give a public explanation for this incident? I refuse to believe that you are in a relationship with Yijie." "We are indeed in a relationship," Tang Jingxian interrupted. "Otherwise, with my status and Hai Rui's power, do you think Zhao Qini would be able to expose something like this so easily? But, your concert is just around the corner. Miss Song, this has nothing to do with you. Tang Jingxian mercilessly revealed the truth before he turned and left. Song Yinshu could only watch helplessly as Tang Jingxian left. Tang Jingxian was right. This had nothing to do with her. But this wasn't the worst. Because someone even revealed that Yijie was pregnant and the child belonged to Tang Jingxian. Oh God, if this is true, then all I can say is that Luo Xing is blind. No matter what, I will not accept an old and ugly woman. Song Yinshu would sometimes hide at home and watch the news. Whenever she came across any comments that were directed at Tang Jingxian, she would delete them. But this time, the malicious comments came in full force. She couldn't handle them all on her own. Afterwards, she thought about it in her mind. It seemed, from the moment the two of them laid their cards on the table, Tang Jingxian had not been normal. Was this all because of her? Thinking of this, Song Yinshu's expression was full of regret and distress. She wanted so badly to reach out and help Tang Jingxian, but the situation was worse than she expected. If she had known, she wouldn't have hidden her feelings. However, the most unexpected thing was yet to come. Because of Tang Jingxuan's scandal, the fan club was greatly affected. More than half of the fans refunded their tickets. Chapter 528. I've never seen a singer in such a pitiful state. Are we still going to be his accompaniment? The musician asked as he looked at the empty audience on stage. Yeah, I've been an accompanist for over 10 years. What an eye-opener. The drummer sat down in his seat and played with his neatly combed hair. It makes me feel a little sympathetic towards Luo Xing. What's the point of sympathizing? He needs the audience to sympathize with him. How big of a deal is it? I really admire Luo Xing's courage. He's been extremely popular this year. The last time he performed in another city, there wasn't a single empty seat in a 10,000 capacity venue. What a shame. In reality, Tang Jingxian already knew what the situation was like outside. But he continued to sit in front of his dressing table and prepare like he always did. In this industry, if you could enjoy the glory of being the center of attention, you also needed to understand the misery of being abandoned. 5 minutes before the show started, Tang Jingxian was already dressed in a dark gray tuxedo and ready to go on stage. But at this time, he received a phone call from Tongning. Don't be afraid. Even if you have nothing left, you still have your family. Tang Jingxuan's heart was suddenly deeply moved by Tongning. If one were to say that he was slightly timid and hesitant a moment ago, then, after hearing that Tongning still had her family, he immediately relaxed. As he put down his phone, he gave the staff an okay sign. Seeing his determination, the host no longer felt awkward as he stepped onto the stage like there were millions of fans in front of him. However, what he didn't expect was that in the audience, there was someone sitting in the middle of the VIP seats. Although this person wasn't a fan, her presence was enough to rival millions of fans. The host was a little surprised as he became a little emotional. After all, Tongning's current position was not something a small host like him could see. So, he couldn't help but feel a little nervous. Perhaps sensing the awkwardness on his face, Tongning looked at the host and smiled. It was this smile that the host would never forget this special night for the rest of his life. Afterwards, he regained his composure and reminded himself to treat this as a rehearsal. So, he quickly got into the zone. Next, let's welcome our heavenly star, Luo Xing, as the stage lights flickered. Tongning saw Tang Jingxian jump out from behind a mirror dressed in a black leather suit with his dancers. He was originally good at soft love songs, but for the last fan club in his life, he put on the hottest clothes and danced the most captivating dance. Of course, Tang Jingxian did not expect to see Tongning amongst the empty audience. But when he thought about Tongning's words of encouragement, he suddenly realized, in this world, even if everyone abandoned him, his family would not. Tongning would never do that. Just like that, Tang Jingxian danced and glowed. His eyes unconsciously became moist. After 3 minutes of passion, Tang Jingxian ended the dance with a handsome pose and walked over to the MC, panting. Luo Xing, today. Host, actually, you don't have to be so restrained. Just do whatever you want today. If possible, can you pass the microphone to me? I have something to say. Actually, this fan club was being streamed live online. Although not many people were paying attention, Tongning had prepared another gift for Tang Jingxian. She rented the biggest television in Beijing and broadcast his fan club live. Okay, the MC nodded. Firstly, I would like to say hello to all my fans, even though none of you came, Tang Jingxian said with a hint of sadness as he bowed to everyone. Tang Jingxian said with a hint of sadness in his voice. But he still bowed to everyone, however. I won't feel any regrets. Below the stage, there are still my beloved family members. Firstly, I would like to clarify that there is no special relationship between Miss Zhao Qini and I am not the father of the child in her stomach. The so-called evidence is simply because I invited Miss Zhao to Hyatt Regency. As you all understand, this industry needs to be hyped up. As for me, I simply asked my sister 3 to tactfully tell Miss Zhao that I did not want to cooperate. As for what happened afterwards, I don't want to explain. Before I entered the industry, I admit that I thought being a celebrity's job was to be liked. But after entering the industry, I realized this industry is a lot dirtier and darker than I thought. Feelings are fake, talent is fake, and sometimes even fans are fake. Following on, I would like to sing a song called Self-Hypnosis to the people that abandoned me today. Because of you, I have learned that reality is irreversible, but the human heart is hard to predict. After Tang Jingxian finished speaking, the soothing music on the stage finally began to play. Tang Jingxian quickly immersed himself into the sad love song. Abandonment is salvation, but when you turn around, it becomes nothing. Tang Jingshuan's voice was transmitted to every corner of Beijing's biggest television screen. As for those that saw this, they couldn't help but stop in their tracks. There was no audience. There were no fans. But he was still himself, the little heavenly king that loved to sing. Actually, I've wanted to say this for a long time. After the song ended, Tang Jingxian suddenly said to the camera in seriousness, "Life is a jerk, but this industry is even more of a jerk. I know a lot of people want me to disappear from this industry because I've disgusted you. Since I've said this much, then I would like to say to everyone, I will do as you wish. I, Luo Xing, hereby announce that from tonight onwards, I will be retreating from the entertainment industry and will never sing again. In fact, I will never step foot into this industry again. In the past, I sang because I liked it. Later on, it was because of my fans. But when faced with fans that can turn against me overnight, I feel there's nothing else worth sacrificing my youth for. After all, my family is still waiting for me. From this moment onwards, I am Tang Jingxian, the fourth master of the Tang family and the future successor of Tang Core." With that, Tang Jingxian took off his costume and tossed it into the air. Lastly, I would like to thank you for your temporary love and thank you for your current hatred. After speaking, Tang Jingxian took a few steps back and bowed to everyone. He then elegantly stepped off the stage and headed towards Tongning. It seemed he no longer had any attachment to the industry. Meanwhile, the internet was in an uproar. In order to prove his innocence, the little heavenly king, Luo Xing, announced his retreat from the industry. Chapter 529. Luo Xing retreats from the industry. Luo Xing announces his retreat from the entertainment industry. Luo Xing announces his retreat from the industry without any hesitation. Songjia, have you seen the news tonight? It's explosive. Your former singer, Luo Xing, has announced his retreat from the industry. Inside the waiting room, one of Song Yinshu's artists laughed as she handed a phone to Song Yinshu. I heard that not a single fan turned up at the concert tonight. I've never seen anyone worse off than him. Hearing Luo Xing retreat from the industry, Song Yinshu was a little surprised. She immediately put down the magazine in her hands and received the phone with trembling hands. That's impossible. Why is it impossible? All the news outlets are reporting about it. Hayes, I used to like his songs. I'm so unlucky this time. Song Yinshu could no longer hear anything else. Her mind was blank, and her heart felt like it was being stabbed by needles. Even though she wasn't sure what her feelings towards Tang Jingxian were, one thing was clear. Luo Xing's decision to retire from the industry was largely because of the hurt she had caused him. With this thought, Song Yinshu immediately pulled out her phone and gave Tang Jingxian a phone call. But there was no response. Song Yinshu then tried to contact Tongning, but Tongning's phone was turned off. No. Luo Xing can't retreat from the industry. Song Yinshu mumbled to herself. Song Jia, what's wrong? Song Yinshu's artists asked worriedly after seeing her in a daze. However, Song Yinshu couldn't care less as she rushed out of the waiting room. But by the time she arrived at the venue where Tang Jingxuan's concert was held, the entire venue had already been emptied. All that was left behind were 2 to 3 staff cleaning up. Where's Luo Xing? Song Yinshu asked as she grabbed onto one of them. He left a long time ago. Why would he stay here? Hayes, the industry these days is full of hostility. He was such a good young man, yet he kept using him to create rumors. Now, he's been forced to leave. As for his fans, they were still in love with him yesterday, yet today, they're already gnashing their teeth in hatred. How cheap are their feelings? The middle-aged man scoffed. After hearing the man's words, Song Yinshu felt even worse. That's right. During Luo Xing's most difficult time, she had led another artist to compete with him for resources. She suddenly thought back to what Luo Xing had said at the time. Either be his woman, or be a stranger. She always thought Luo Xing was still young and would forget about it after some time, but she never imagined, after Xia Jingyi dealt such a heavy blow to Luo Xing, she would actually add another bloody stab to Tang Jingxuan's body. Luo Xing, the female lead of Luo Xing's scandal, Zhao Qini, made a public appearance, saying, Luo Xing is innocent. Manager manipulated from behind the scenes, Zhao Qini proves Luo Xing's innocence. The child's father is an Asian businessman. He has nothing to do with Luo Xing. Less than half an hour after Tang Jingxian announced his retirement from the entertainment industry, Zhao Qini released a series of announcements through her agency to prove Tang Jingxuan's innocence, as well as evidence of his manager manipulating things behind the scenes. After that, Zhao Qini accepted an interview with the media. Her face was full of tears, and she looked haggard. First of all, I would like to sincerely apologize to all of you for the negative impact that I have brought to the public. However, this incident has nothing to do with Luo Xing, and he has not done anything wrong. In reality, this was the first time we met at the premiere of WH. If you don't believe me, you can check our schedules. Since we've only just met, we can't possibly be lovers. Even though I had bad intentions, Luo Xing never cooperated. This entire incident has been a misunderstanding from start to finish. I never expected to hurt Luo Xing so much. Especially after hearing the words he said at the concert. I feel extremely guilty. That's why I've come out to clarify everything. If you want to scold me, then direct it at me. This incident has nothing to do with Luo Xing. Lastly, I want to say something that I've been holding in my heart all night. I also saw the situation at Luo Xing's concert on the big screen. To be honest, if I was Luo Xing, I would be extremely disappointed. What do you think, fans? After speaking, Zhao Qini turned to the cameras and bowed deeply. Then, she left under the protection of her assistant. This Zhao Qini is hilarious. When she was in trouble, she didn't step out to clarify everything. Instead, she's running away so quickly now, the media sighed. At least she knows to take responsibility for the situation. Haven't a lot of male artists suffered because of things like this? Yet, they can't say anything about it, another reporter replied. But Luo Xing's fans have indeed crossed the line. After all, he's an artist that they once liked. Yet, not a single one of them attended the concert. Haven't you seen things like this before? But Luo Xing doesn't care. After all, even if he doesn't become a singer, he is still the young master of Tang Core. Isn't it great for him to return home and take over the family business? Good riddance to this fucked up industry. So, Luo Xing was indeed slandered, and there was nothing between him and Zhao Qini. However, whether it was his fans or Song Yinshu, Tang Jingxuan's departure was like a powerful slap across the face. Sob, I regret not trusting Luo Xing. He actually left the industry. He left just like that. He must have been too disappointed in us. Luo Xing, I'm sorry. fans issued a series of apologies. In fact, one even bought an entire page of the newspaper to print an apology letter to Luo Xing. But there were some things that could be redone over and over again. But there were some things that, once missed, would never happen again. Song Yinshu spent the entire night looking for Tang Jingxian. In fact, she even went to the Tang family home. But he was supposed to be at Hyatt Regency. Song Yinshu was too ashamed to see him, so she could only return empty-handed. Songjia, where did you go? I didn't see you at the event. Facing her own artist, Song Yinshu couldn't help but tear up. Did I miss out on the most beautiful Luo Xing? What are you talking about? Song Yinshu looked at Song Yinshu in a daze. She suddenly lost control of her emotions. I actually wanted to apologize to him. I never expected that he would be so disappointed. Songjia, what's wrong? Song Yinshu calmed herself down and shook her head. All she had in her mind was, would she ever see him again? Does that mean I won't be able to see Luo Xing anymore? How could he give up on everything so easily? Was his singing career really that easy for him to give up? Actually, Song Yinshu didn't understand. Did she mind if Tang Jingxian gave up on his identity as a singer, or if it was so easy for him to say goodbye to her? Chapter 530. After Tang Jingxian announced his retreat from the industry, his previous works naturally climbed to the top of the music charts and became popular around him. But no matter what his fans said or how much they apologized to him, from the night of the fan club, he never appeared in public again. He also cut off all contact with them. It was almost like he had never appeared in the entertainment industry. But what did the popular songs that he left behind count for? Above all, at the end of the year, he received quite a few music awards. But because he announced his retreat from the industry, all of his glory was collected by someone from Hai Rue. In fact, every time, the representative simply said, Luo Xing would like to thank everyone for their support. It was a very official and cold sentence without any hint of gratitude. After all, he didn't need to thank anyone. Everything he did was due to his own hard work. Hearing these words, his fans and Song Yinshu felt a sharp pain in their hearts. Only they knew that Tang Jingxuan's disappointment in them was far more than that. Late at night, Tang Jingxian was packing his luggage at the Tang family villa when Elder Tang walked over to his room with the help of his walking stick. He then sat on the edge of his bed and asked, "Have you made up your mind? Are you going to the U.S. to further your studies?" "Grandfather, don't worry. This time, I've thought about it carefully," Tang Jingxian replied helplessly. "Is it because of that woman?" Elder Tang asked cautiously. He hadn't seen Tang Jingxian smile for the past few days. "For the sake of a woman, you're willing to leave your family and travel so far away?" After a short pause, Tang Jingxian put down the clothes in his hands and said in seriousness, "Grandfather, through this incident, I've seen clearly what my true value is. I admit, I do feel a little regretful. But, please believe me, this time, the main reason I am going is to shoulder the responsibility of the Tang family. Sister 3 was born to be an actress. The film industry will allow her to shine brightly. So, let me shoulder the responsibility of the Tang family." "Are you serious about this?" Elder Tang asked. In reality, deep down, he already believed that Tang Jingxian had the motivation and plans to move forward. After all, his sister had already done so much for him. "I couldn't be more sincere. Grandfather, while I'm gone, please take care of yourself. Don't get too close to Tang Xian. That woman is crazy. Who knows what else she's up to?" Grandpa Tang sighed, patted Tang Jingxian on the shoulder, and finally nodded. "Be careful when you go out this time. The flight is at 7 a.m. tomorrow, right? Grandpa will send you off." "No need, Grandpa. I can go by myself." Tang Jingxian was determined to leave. All right then. This result was completely within Tongning's expectations. After all, this was how Tang Jingxian truly looked like a member of the Tang family. She shouldn't have judged Tang Jingxuan's feelings so early. Obviously, after this incident, He already knew whether or not Song Yinshu was suitable for him. Perhaps there was still room for them to grow. But who knew what the future would hold? To avoid being recognized, Tang Jingxian arrived at Beijing Airport at 5 a.m. the next day. Of course, he was a popular figure at the moment. So even under the circumstances, there were still people who recognized him. Is that Luo Xing? I think so. Luo Xing, faced with the girls that suddenly surrounded him, Tang Jingshuan's attitude was relatively cold. He crossed his arms and said, "I'm sorry, you've got the wrong person. You are obviously Luo Xing." "Yes, that's right." Tang Jingxian did not say a word because he was about to pass through security. The girls seemed to have sensed the distance between them, so they did not say a word, even though they kept snapping photos of him from behind. Soon, the plane took off. As Tang Jingxian was seated in first class, he received the peace and quiet he wanted. From today onwards, he couldn't be weak and he couldn't refuse. He needed to protect Tongning and the Tang family. He needed to get rid of his cowardice and completely change himself. However, his trip to the US was also captured by a fan and was exposed online. "Songjia, have you been in a daze these past few days because of him?" Inside Hai Rui's waiting room, one of Song Yinshu's artists handed her a piece of news she had just seen. "He's gone to the US." Song Yinshu froze for a moment. After 3 seconds, she once again received the phone from Emoting. Seeing Tang Jingxian leave Beijing fully armed, Song Yinshu's heart once again sank to the bottom of the valley. It was like something had flown away with him, and all that was left was an empty shell. Afterwards, Song Yinshu gave Tongning a phone call. "Ningjia, Yinshu, what's wrong?" Tongning asked despite knowing the answer. "I want to know why Luo Xing, he's gone overseas to further his studies. I don't think you'll see him for the next few years," Tongning replied calmly. "Oh, then, I wish him a bright future." Song Yinshu didn't know how she hung up the phone. All she knew was, as soon as she put it down, her heart was completely empty. Not only had Tang Jingxian left the industry, he had left without hesitation. This was what she had hoped for. So why did she feel so much regret? Or perhaps, Tang Jingshuan's motive was to make her regret for the rest of her life? Inside Hyatt Regency, Tongning had just put down her phone. Seeing her furrowed brows, Emoting couldn't help but rub her forehead. "You always have an endless amount of worries." "Ting, are you saying that the rascal and Yinshu are no longer fated?" Tongning couldn't help but lean into Emoting's embrace. "I don't care if their fate ends or not. All I know is, I want you to receive the Fei Tian Best Newcomer Award," Emoting said in seriousness. WH has only been released for a short period of time, but it has already broken many box office records. Did you know? Everyone is full of praise for you. Even the old man personally told me that your acting in WH amazed him, but I heard that grandfather has been invited to be a judge for this year's Fei Tian Awards. Tongning lifted her head and looked at Emoting. "Did you get this information from Longjia?" "That's true, but don't expect grandfather to go easy on you." "Of course I know grandfather won't. I'm just afraid that others will think the same way. I hope the award in my hands will be truly valuable." Tongning couldn't help but worry. According to her experience, the Fei Tian Awards weren't going to be easy to receive. Chapter 531. Of course, the Fei Tian Awards weren't easy to win. After all, it was the dream of every actor. Not only were their competitors capable, they also had some tricks up their sleeves. Even if the results couldn't be falsified, there were still plenty of people that would run around for the chance to win the award. Even so, Emoting was determined to win the Best Newcomer Award. He had already made Tongning give up too much. The international stage, the glory of being a supermodel, an immeasurable net worth, and her most primal dream. With this thought, Emoting's eyes lit up with seriousness. After all, the only person in this world that could make him give his 100% was Tongning. The Fei Tian Awards was made up of 3 parts. 20% came from the audience, 50% came from the professional judges, and 30% came from the results of the awards. In other words, Apart from the fact that the audience could be manipulated, the other two categories were practically impossible to manipulate. After all, the Fei Tian Awards had been around for so many years and had maintained its impartiality and recognition. This was all because of its transparency. As for the 20% that could be manipulated, it was the least important part. In reality, it was also a representation of an actor's appeal, but it had no effect on the judging of the awards. Why do we need to win the Best Newcomer Award? With our acting, we can directly win the Best Actress Award. Inside the living room, Tang Ning watched as Long Jie looked at the information in her hands. She couldn't help but laugh. You can't eat everything in one go. Plus, the Fei Tian Awards are only chosen by the truly capable people. I've heard that every year, the judges would end up fighting each other over the award. From this, it's clear to see how valuable the Fei Tian Awards is. This was the reason why Tang Ning was so excited. After all, she wanted to see how good her acting was in the eyes of the professionals. With your current popularity and the fact that you've been hiding at home for a few months, you don't need to worry about the voting. As long as they do their best, Tang Ning laughed. After all, the opinions of the judges were the most important to her. Long Jie was silent for a moment before her eyes landed on Tang Ning's stomach. She pointed to it and asked, "When does boss plan to announce your pregnancy? Is there a need to rush something like this?" Tang Ning asked as she rubbed her stomach. "When the time is right, I will naturally reveal it to the public." After hearing this, Long Jie suddenly fell silent. Deep down, she knew that Tang Ning had to be prepared for something as explosive as this. Or, to be exact, she had a plan in mind that she wanted to achieve. However, at this moment, Tang Ning's eyes were filled with a cold light. She was preparing to give Tang Xian and the people that had previously ridiculed her for being infertile a heavy blow. "Hey, isn't that Song Yinshu?" "Why are you pacing around downstairs?" Long Jie subconsciously glanced out the window and saw Song Yinshu standing outside. "She's hesitating whether or not she wants to talk to me," Tang Ning replied calmly. "What happened?" Long Jie looked confused. She had no idea about the entanglement between Song Yinshu and Tang Jingxian. Tang Ning let out a gentle laugh as she stood up and walked over to the balcony. She shouted downstairs, "Come on up." Song Yinshu felt a little awkward. She never expected to be discovered. Afterwards, she gathered her courage and entered the Spanish palace-like home. She tiptoed over to Tang Ning and said, "Ning Jie, I want to talk to you." "Go ahead." Long Jie isn't an outsider. Tang Ning gestured with her chin. "I know you want to ask about Jingxian, but I'm sorry, I really don't know what Jingxian is thinking right now. I just want to apologize, but I can't get in touch with him." Song Yinshu smiled bitterly. "You don't need to apologize to him. He left the industry because he was disgusted by the darkness." Tang Ning comforted. However, these words had no effect on Song Yinshu. "Ning Jie, it's not like he hasn't experienced it in the past. But this time, why?" "You need to ask yourself," Tang Ning interrupted. "Forget it. Yinshu, why are you so serious about making Jingxian famous? What is your motive? Is it because of Jingxian, or is it because of something else?" As soon as Song Yinshu heard this, she froze. "You were the one that sacrificed your reputation to pull him out of Xia Jingyi's swamp. You basically gave him a second chance at love, but if you risked your life for someone else, then to him, it would be more painful than betrayal. He won't be able to help but ask himself, are you just using him?" Song Yinshu's face turned pale. He is now in a new environment and is doing well. "Yinshu, you need to move forward. You have nothing to do with him, and there is no need to apologize." In other words, what was missed for good. Even if you wanted to get back, it depended on whether the other party was willing to wait for you. Song Yinshu left Hyatt Regency without a word. Meanwhile, Long Jie immediately saw through Tang Ning's intentions. "Yinshu, you can't tell. After all, we've been together for so many years, so I know you well. What you said just now was to get back at Jingxian." "Did I?" Tang Ning asked with a smile. "Of course I did. With your vengeful personality, you won't even let the people around you go. I'm simply speaking the truth. Yinshu is meticulous in her work, but that doesn't mean I agree with her sentiments. Above all, The person that Song Yinshu bullied was her brother. She had to teach Song Yinshu a lesson so that her brother's suffering wouldn't be in vain. Late at night, Tang family home. Elder Tang, who had nothing to do, found another hobby to do apart from meditating, to calculate the time of birth for Tang Xian and Tong Ning's child. Of course, for this reason, Elder Tang even hired a lawyer to prepare a share certificate as a gift for his grandchild. He wanted to transfer 20% of his shares to his first grandchild. 20%. Elder Tang did not hide this from his family. After all, the entire Tang family knew that Tong Ning was pregnant. Only Tang Xian was kept in the dark. As for the definition of his first grandchild, naturally, the old master had his own standards in mind. Even if Tang Xian's child was born before Tong Ning's, as the mother, she couldn't take a single cent from her child, because she would be kicked out of the Tang family. But Tang Xian didn't think this way. Somehow, she felt a sense of hope. After all, she had no idea that Tong Ning was pregnant. Grandfather, isn't 20% a little too much? Tang Xian hid the joy on her face and revealed a slightly shocked expression. Too much? Of course not, Elder Tang replied happily. But what did these shares have to do with her? Chapter 532. Grandfather, I never expected that you would accept me and my child in such a way. Tang Xian couldn't help but sob. Perhaps, at this moment, her heart was truly moved. But Elder Tang would never fall for her tricks again, especially after all the mistakes she had made. Turning over a new leaf? Elder Tang refused to believe that Tang Xian would do such a thing. Don't say anything else. Go upstairs and get some rest, Elder Tang said as he waved his hand. He didn't want to continue talking half-heartedly with Tang Xian. After all, blood was thicker than water. Yet they each had their own thoughts. That in itself was quite ironic. Okay, grandfather, I'll head upstairs first, Tang Xian said as she held her stomach. But, just as she turned around, she noticed Xia Yuling standing behind them with an unreadable expression on her face. Tang Xian assumed that Xia Yuling had already heard that Elder Tang was planning to give his shares to Tang Xian, so she couldn't help but feel proud. Xia Yuling watched as Tang Xian left, but of course, she did not say a word. After Tang Xian left, she sat down beside Elder Tang. Father, what is the meaning of this? Elder Tang held onto his walking stick with both hands and replied in a strict tone, These are my shares. I have the right to decide what to do with them. But, Yuling, you don't need to say anything. Elder Tang held out his hand to stop Xia Yuling. Elder Tang stretched out his hand to stop Xia Yuling. He then stood up and said, I've already made my decision. Follow me to the study room. There's no point in objecting. We can't let Xiao Xin hear about this. After all, she is currently pregnant. Xia Yuling suddenly understood what Elder Tang was trying to say. She glanced behind her from the corner of her eyes and followed him into the study room. Father, Yuling, I have decided to officially hand over my authority as chairman. I also plan to officially introduce Tong Ning as the future chairman in front of all the staff. Elder Tang leaned against the study table and sighed. Elder Tang leaned against the study table and sighed. That brat, Tang Xian, is completely hopeless. After she gives birth, just let her go wherever she wants to go. I can't do anything about it. So, you're saying that you have no intention of giving your shares to your first grandchild? I'm giving it to my grandson. What does that have to do with Tang Xian? Elder Tang asked with a deeper meaning. Although I know Xiao Ning doesn't want to take over Tangkor, I'm getting old. With you here and Jingxian in the future, I think it's time for me to let go of my responsibilities. Xiao Ning doesn't need to do much. As long as she is the chairwoman of Tangkor, it will continue to grow. Dad, Elder Tang waved his hand as his lips suddenly curled into a self-deprecating smile. Then it's decided. It's almost time for the holidays and the company's annual staff meeting. Let's take this opportunity to announce this news. Prepare well for Xiao Ning to take over in glory. After a moment of silence, Xia Yuling nodded her head. Okay then, we'll do as you say. As for Tang Xian, do as you wish. No need to ask me. I will pretend I never had a granddaughter. Did Elder Tang mean that he had completely given up on Tang Xian? Although Tang Xian was pregnant, when Xia Yuling thought about what she had done in the past, she couldn't bring herself to sympathize with her. At most, she would treat Tang Xian's child a little more fairly from now on. Late at night, Ting carried Tongning out of the bathroom and gently placed her on the bed. He then knelt down and gently stroked her bulging stomach. Mom just gave me a phone call. She wants us to attend Tangkor's annual staff meeting, Tongning said as she lay back on the soft pillow. Tongning leaned against the soft pillow and asked, "Hubby, do you think I should go? Since you are now the person in charge of Tangkor, it's only natural that you attend." Ting held onto Tongning's right hand and placed a passionate kiss on the back of it. "But I don't think I'll be able to hide the fact that I'm pregnant," Tongning said as she looked down at her stomach. "We were going to announce it anyway. Let's start with the employees of Tangkor." Ting let go of Tongning's hand and stood up. He then covered her with the blanket. "Don't worry and take our child with you. I will be your strongest support." Tongning nodded her head. She suddenly placed her hands on Ting's handsome face and looked at him seriously for a moment before smiling. "I hope I can give birth to a son. That way, I can see you when you were young. I also want you to give birth to a daughter. In that case, let's give birth to two." After speaking, Tongning placed her forehead against Ting's. The couple leaned against each other intimately. On the outside, Ting was still the big boss of the entertainment industry and the ruthless CEO of Hai Rui. But when it came to Tongning, his warmth remained the same. Because of this, Tongning could imagine that after a few decades, even with a child, Ting would still remain gentle and charming. Tangkor's annual celebration. This was, of course, the day that employees looked forward to the most. After all, on this day every year, Tangkor would give their employees bonuses and benefits. Not only that, Tangkor would also prepare a ball so that every employee could dress up and attend in style. However, this year's annual celebration was going to be a little special. Meanwhile, WH was still in theaters. Of course, the film's reputation and box office earnings were still a pleasant surprise. Although it was the end of the year, the thrilling scenes from the film were still enough to satisfy film fans. As a result, WH, despite being surrounded by a few other blockbusters, was not affected at all. In fact, compared to the other blockbusters, WH was exceptionally valuable. When is The Lost Lover going to be released? I heard that Tongning will be playing the role of a thug. Isn't that even more enjoyable? Tongning is really amazing. She has created 3 characters in 3 films, and every single one of them is so realistic. It's a pity she's been forced to retreat from the industry. All in all, WH is the most enjoyable film I've seen in recent years. I hope Tongning can continue to expand her acting path and not go down the path of an idol film. Let's vote for Tongning this time. I wonder when we'll get to see Tongning again. In reality, it was rare for a situation like this to occur in the entertainment industry. After all, there were newcomers rising to fame every day. As soon as someone lost their exposure, it was easy for them to be forgotten. But Tongning never seemed to lack popularity. Especially after WH exploded in popularity, her popularity skyrocketed. A person that announced that they were retreating from the industry had completely overshadowed all the other popular artists that were currently in front of the public. Tongning's brilliance was sometimes dazzling, but at other times, it was annoying. But who would have guessed? Tongning was about to release another explosive piece of news that would excite the media. Chapter 533. Why was this person that had already retreated from the industry? So why was there so many legends about her? It wasn't long before Tangkor held their annual celebration. As it was open to all staff, the atmosphere was extremely grand. This was because when it came to employee welfare, Tangkor had always listened to their wishes. Especially after Xia Yuling became the CEO, she cared for them even more than before. This, of course, increased the cohesiveness of the staff. However, this year's annual celebration was clearly more cohesive than before. This was because they had a very important reason for attending, to see Tongning. Recently, the staff of Tangkor had been completely infatuated with WH. After all, it was a highly acclaimed film. If there was a promotional event or a celebrity meet and greet, they would definitely give it their all. But Tongning had announced that she was retreating from the industry. Even her closest fans couldn't see her in person. So, their only chance was to attend the annual celebration. Luckily, we are all employees of Tangkor, so we still have a chance to see Tongning. There are at least 1,000 employees attending the annual celebration in Beijing today. Everyone is dressed to the nines and everyone is glittering. I can't wait to see what Tongning looks like when she comes out. Exactly, she is a supermodel after all. I still prefer her as an actress. Her acting is so good. At the grand annual celebration, under the luxurious chandelier, guests gathered in small groups and chatted amongst themselves. Of course, the hottest topic was, of course, Tongning. Tongning. From August of last year, this name had slowly permeated the entire Beijing. Until today, she had become synonymous with a legend. Even though everyone knew she was married and her husband was the even more legendary CEO of Hai Rue. Do you guys think she will come today? I bet she will. Stop talking. Instead of bringing Tongning back, we ended up bringing the big mistress of pestilence back. Everyone looked towards the end of the red carpet and saw Tang Xian dressed in a long white dress with a light gray fur coat draped over her shoulders. Even though she was in dire straits, she still retained the aura of the big miss of Tangkor. As she supported Elder Tang, step by step, she walked into view. The guests and staff all stepped forward to greet her. In particular, the shareholders and important business partners all stepped forward to shake Elder Tang's hand. Of course, they didn't forget to praise Tang Xian. Elder Tang, if your granddaughter continues to be so beautiful, she will be a goddess. That's right. Even though Xiaoxian is pregnant, her figure is still so good. How enviable. Although Tang Xian knew that this was just a compliment, she still felt satisfied. After all, women love to be complimented. By the way, where are your second miss and Tongning? Why don't I see them? As soon as Elder Imo heard the question, he smiled and replied, Yichin still has one more surgery to complete. As for Tongning, she's on her way. As you all know, Beijing is famous for its traffic jams. Of course, Elder Imo, you are so lucky. Our whole family went to watch Tongning's latest film. You've really raised a genius. My son even said that if he sees Tongning, he needs to get her autograph for him. My 2 kids are crazy about her. Ha ha ha, it's just an autograph. This is a small matter. Although today was Tangkor's annual celebration, hearing everyone's praises, Elder Tang was still overjoyed. Even though he pretended to be calm, he knew deep down that he had underestimated his career as an actor in the entertainment industry. He had never imagined that Tongning would receive so much love and respect from so many people. In fact, along the way, people did notice Tang Xian at first. But every time Tongning's name was mentioned, Tang Xian would completely disappear into the background. It seemed no one noticed her existence anymore. At first, Tang Xian managed to force a smile. But as time went on, the jealousy in her heart burned even stronger. Why didn't Tongning give her a chance to survive? Tongning already had everything. Aya, Elder Tang. I'm so honored. I wonder if I'll get to see Tongning today. As another guest approached, Tang Xian couldn't hold back any longer. So, she said to Elder Tang, Grandfather, I want to go to the bathroom. Go ahead. Elder Tang knew that she had reached her limit, so he asked Tang Xian to leave. Tang Xian let go of Elder Tang's arm and grabbed her handbag as she left the hall. However, because of her agitated emotions, her footsteps were a little forceful. As a result, she ended up running into a young woman. The woman was wearing a light pink dress. Because of Tang Xian's forceful collision, her dress was covered in red wine and she looked extremely disheveled. Even so, Tang Xian did not react. She simply glanced at the woman indifferently and prepared to leave. However, at this time, the woman reached out her hand and stopped her. Can't you say sorry after bumping into someone? Miss Tang? Tang Xian was already in a bad mood. So, being provoked by the woman made her even angrier. So, she yelled, "Fuck off. Fuck off." The woman had never heard anyone say this to her before. So she grabbed onto Tang Xian's wrist. "Apologize. Don't look for trouble. I didn't do it on purpose. Since you know I am the big miss of the Tang family, then you should know that this is our territory." The woman looked unusually young, but her eyes were filled with a sharp glow. From her aura, it was easy to tell that she was not an ordinary person. So, this is how Tang Court treats its guests? Because of Tang Xian's attitude, the woman's voice rose in volume. In fact, it even attracted Elder Tang's attention. Elder Tang glanced at the crowd. It was obvious he wanted to step forward and deal with the matter. But a few of his old friends were pestering him, making it difficult for him to leave. Assistant Long immediately understood Elder Tang's intentions and whispered in his ear, "The third miss has arrived." Elder Tang suddenly relaxed as he nodded his head and went along with the commotion. After all, this was the best time to introduce Tongning to him. "Dear guests, you can all come and take a look. Miss Tang Xian bumped into me, yet not only did she not apologize, she even told me that this is the Tang family's territory and told me not to look for trouble. I simply want to hear the words, sorry. Miss Tang, is your situation not enough for you to lower your noble head and apologize?" After hearing this, Tang Xian's face flushed red. Everyone knew that she was nothing more than an empty shell and was nothing more than a decoration in the Tang family. But understanding was one thing and being exposed was another. So, Tang Xian flew into a rage as she lifted her hand to throw a slap at the woman. Chapter 534. Miss Tang, think it over carefully. If you really throw this slap across the face, Tangkor will lose one of its biggest business partners next year. The man looked straight into Tang Xian's eyes and spoke in a firm tone. In front of everyone, Tang Xian was suddenly forced into a corner by her opponent. If she was to throw her slap across the face, not only would Elder Tang be affected, but so many staff and eyes would be watching her every move. If she didn't throw her slap, then where would she put her pride as the big miss? But just as everyone thought Tang Xian wouldn't dare to make a move, a loud slap was heard. Tang Xian actually threw a punch in front of so many people. She suddenly remembered how all the guests were praising Tang Xian and ignoring her. Since Tang Xian was omnipotent, she wanted to see how Tang Xian was going to turn the situation around. Of course, Tang Xian would always use the method of hurting the enemy while hurting herself. She had never thought about the long-term consequences of doing so. Has the big miss gone crazy? How could she hit the heiress of Su Kor? Is there something wrong with her brain? Our staff works so hard. Is it just for her to waste? Tangkor's staff expressed their dissatisfaction, especially when Tang Xian did something so stupid at such a grand event. It was no wonder that Tongning's reputation in Tangkor grew. After all, between the two of them, one was there to solve problems, while the other was there to create problems. Miss Su did not expect Tang Xian to actually hit her. In an instant, she covered her face and glared at Tang Xian in shock and anger. Tang Xian felt a little scared, but she still gathered her courage. "You were the one who told me to hit you. Don't blame me for not holding back. After all, this is Tangkor's annual celebration. It seems Tangkor and Su Kor don't want to continue with the collaboration," the man said coldly. The man said coldly to Tang Xian. After speaking, he turned around to leave. But at this moment, a loud shout rang out from the crowd. "Please wait." Everyone turned around and looked in the direction of the voice. The onlookers quickly moved aside to form a path. At this time, everyone could clearly see who it was. She was wearing a black, fluffy dress, and her whole body exuded a sexy and mysterious aura. The sparkling diamonds on her wrist and earlobes made her look like a star in the vast sky, sparkling and enchanting. This kind of noble aura, this kind of inviolable radiance, caused everyone present to almost forget to breathe for a moment. especially when she had Ting standing beside her. A handsome man like him, no matter where he stood, he would be the undisputed king. It was as if he was the ruler of the world. With such a beautiful couple, who else could compete for the glory? Tongning is here. Things have taken a turn for the better. You've arrived just in time. Third miss, you need to save Tangkor's face. Don't let that idiot ruin it all. The people around them had already expressed their excitement. Of course, Tongning still purposely hid her stomach. After all, she was wearing a fluffy dress. She didn't think it was the right time to reveal the child in her stomach. After all, there were too many guests and complicated characters. She didn't want to put her baby at risk. Please wait, Tongning called out once again as she held onto the heiress of Su-Kor. The heiress was a little surprised, but she still turned around and saw Tongning and Ting walking towards them. Many people had only heard of Tongning's methods, but they had never seen her brilliant PR skills. So, the problem today was a perfect test for her. Tang Xian had already made a move. Was there any way to salvage the situation? Third Miss Tang, the heiress scoffed. What? Do you think your sister hasn't hit you enough? Do you want to give her another slap? Miss Su, can you give me a minute? Tongning asked sincerely. The heiress wanted to reject Tongning, but as she looked into Tongning's eyes, she couldn't bring herself to open her mouth. Go ahead. The heiress gave Tongning a chance with an expression that said, let's see what you can do. Tongning, your sister has been bullied. Are you still going to help an outsider at a time like this? Tang Xian took the opportunity to fan the flames. Hearing this question, Tongning turned around and glared at Tang Xian coldly. She then asked, if I remember correctly, Miss Tang Xian is the outsider at Tangkor, am I right? You, as an outsider, how dare you bully a VIP on Tangkor's turf? Miss Tang, how do you plan to explain yourself? Tongning continued to question Tang Xian. Of course, Ting had been protecting his wife the entire time, so there was no need for him to appear in a situation like this. But no one dared to ignore his presence. Tang Xian was speechless. At this time, Tongning did not continue to pressure her. Instead, she turned to the heiress of Su-Kor and said, Miss Su, when it comes to business, the elders have always been the ones to handle things. As the younger generation, it's best if we don't make things difficult for them. Of course, I won't let you get hurt for no reason. What do you say? When the young mistress of the Su family heard this, her lips couldn't help but curl into a smile. Sure enough, the two sisters' styles were worlds apart. Tongning was giving her a way out of this embarrassing situation. After all, Tangkor and Su-Kor couldn't possibly stop working together just because of a slap. After all, this was a multi-billion-dollar business that involved the entire operation of the company. So, she was simply saying it out of anger. But what made the heiress even more excited was the fact that Tongning had no intention of protecting Tang Xian. In fact, she did not hide her disgust towards Tang Xian at all. In other words, they were on the same side. Okay, I would like to see how the third Miss Tang plans to give me a satisfactory explanation. After receiving a response from the heiress, Tongning understood her attitude. So, she freed herself from Ting's arms and walked over to Tang Xian, bow to Miss Su 3 times and say sorry 3 times. Afterwards, she turned around and asked the heiress, Miss Su, what do you think? Bow. In front of so many people? The heiress remained silent for a moment before nodding her head. If Tang Xian was willing, she would, of course, accept. After all, this was a respectful apology. Are you dreaming? Tang Xian asked. Great. In other words, you can make your second choice, Tongning said in a loud voice. After speaking, Tongning raised her voice and said to everyone, I, Tongning, have always been a vengeful person. I'm sure everyone here knows this, right? Since the big Miss Tang refuses to apologize, then I won't ask you to bow. I'll let Miss Su bump into you once and return the slap in the face. After that, we will be even. What do you think? Isn't that fair? Chapter 535. As soon as Tang Xian heard this, her body trembled in anger as she screamed at Tang Ning. Tang Ning? Tang Ning noticed Tang Xian's eyes were red and emotional, but her expression remained cold as she replied, "Don't you think, compared to doing whatever you want on the outside, getting the Tang family to clean up your mess, getting Tang Core to clean up after you, and getting you to apologize and bow to them, is already being very kind to you? If it wasn't for the fact that you are related by blood and that you are a part of the Tang family, you would already be speaking to me from the defendant's stand. How could you possibly stand here in front of me and the guests of Tang Core? If you don't apologize today, I will let Miss Su knock you back. I refuse to believe that with so many people watching you make a mistake, you can still distort the truth." Tang Ning's words were spoken in a calm and powerful tone. Everyone present received the same answer. Tang Ning's attitude was firm. This made the heiress of Su Core feel like she had offended someone she shouldn't have offended. Offended someone she shouldn't have offended. Tang Xian's face turned red and white as her hands clenched into fists. In the end, she couldn't help but laugh. "Tang Ning, don't think I don't know what your motive is. Did you hear that grandfather wants to transfer his shares to my child? So you're plotting something against my child?" Under a situation like this and at a grand event like this, if Tang Xian didn't use her child as a shield, it would be difficult for her to escape unscathed. So, she stuck out her stomach and revealed her identity as a pregnant woman. She wanted to tell everyone that she was pregnant, and no one could mess around with her. Tang Xian was well aware of her advantage. How infuriating. Are we going to let her off just because she's pregnant? How shameless. How could they let someone like her get pregnant? Are we just going to let her get away with it? Hearing the whispers around her, Tang Xian naturally smiled. She knew, as long as there was a child in her stomach, Tang Ning wouldn't dare to do anything to her. So, she scoffed and prepared to leave. However, at this time, Tang Ning grabbed onto her wrist. "I didn't say you could leave. What else can you do to me?" Tang Xian retorted. "In that case, let's settle the score today. Do you want me to announce that you colluded with the doctor to remove my uterus? Or do you want me to announce that you colluded with the secretary to bribe the kidnappers to deal with my mother?" As soon as Tang Xian heard this, her body couldn't help but tremble. "I'll keep the witness and the evidence for you. Do you want to apologize to me quietly now? Or should I ask the police to come and ask you to lower your noble head?" You can't possibly have. You can try." The two sisters did not let a third person, not even the heiress of the Su family, hear what they said. However, it was enough to hurt Tang Xian. Tang Xian's face suddenly turned pale in fear, before slowly turning red. In the end, she gritted her teeth and said, "Tang Ning, you are as despicable as ever. Did you think you were worthy of me using the right methods?" Tang Ning asked. His smile was obviously warm, but in Tang Xian's eyes, it was filled with mockery. "Okay, I apologize." Everyone heard Tang Xian apologize, so they were all shocked. They didn't know how to accept Tang Xian's sudden change in attitude. Tang Ning let go of Tang Xian's hand and gestured for her to apologize with her chin. Tang Xian had no choice but to approach the heiress respectfully. As she bowed, she said, "Miss Su, I'm sorry. It was all my fault. Please forgive me." 3 times, Tang Ning emphasized. Tang Xian's heart was filled with frustration. All she could do was apologize to the heiress twice. "It's fine now." The heiress originally thought no one could deal with this pregnant woman. But, no matter how shameless Tang Xian was, the person she met was Tang Ning. Tang Ning. At this moment, the heiress felt nothing but respect towards Tang Ning. "Is that enough?" Tang Xian asked in a humiliated tone after bowing a few times. Tang Ning looked at the heiress of Su Core, and the heiress nodded her head in satisfaction. "I don't want to see this happen again." Tang Xian glared at Tang Ning angrily, but there was nothing she could do. "You can return to your seat now, Miss Tang. Watch where you walk. Otherwise, if you lose your child, the public will think I have ulterior motives towards your child." She simply returned to her seat, not allowed to leave. Tang Xian's chest heaved up and down. It was obvious she was trying her best to control her anger. But what could she do? The person in front of her was the impenetrable Tongning. Most importantly, she couldn't do anything to her. So, all she could do was turn around and return to her seat in front of everyone. Although I don't know what the third miss said to make this idiot listen to her, it feels fucking good. Seeing this woman in defeat is so satisfying. I can't believe the third miss actually managed to bow and apologize. She defeated such a difficult opponent in just a few moves. She's amazing. The staff of Tang Kor cheered in their hearts. Like the heiress of Su Kor, they were helpless against Tang Xian's arrogance. After all, she was pregnant, so they had to be careful when dealing with her. But Tongning completely defeated Tang Xian. The heiress of Su Kor watched a good show, and Tongning once again helped her regain some face. She then turned to everyone and smiled. I've long heard that the third miss is extremely intelligent. It seems you live up to your reputation. With a leader like this, it's no wonder Tang Kor is becoming more and more successful. Third miss, I admire you. You're too kind, Miss Su. Sorry for making you suffer tonight. This is nothing, the heiress of Su Kor said generously. The heiress of the Su clan said generously, if third Miss Tang doesn't mind, we can be friends. In front of so many people, Tongning resolutely resolved a crisis for Tang Kor. This, of course, made the staff of Tang Kor admire her. So, as he watched the atmosphere return to normal, the corners of Elder Tang's lips curved upwards in relief. If there was one person in this world that wouldn't lose out in front of both good and bad people, it would be Tongning. So, in the end, he put down his old friend and walked past the guests towards Tongning and Emoting. He then suddenly raised Tongning's right hand. Taking advantage of this occasion, I would like to announce something very important. I'm sure no one here will object to my announcement. From today onwards, I will step down as CEO of Tang Kor and will be replaced by my third granddaughter, Tongning. Chapter 536. Hearing this, everyone was stunned as they looked at each other with a glass of red wine in their hands. At this time, the most excited person was none other than Tang Xian, who jumped out of her chair. The announcement was too sudden. For Tang Kor, it was like a huge bomb had been dropped on them. At first, the staff did not react. But, at this time, Emoting suddenly clapped his hands. Not long after, the entire hall erupted in applause. This is great. That's great. Wow. Not only did the hall erupt in applause, but the staff were also so excited that they began to scream and cheer for Tongning. They were convinced by Tongning. If it was someone else, they wouldn't have accepted it so easily. Tongning lived up to everyone's expectations. Xiao Ning, there are so many eyes looking at you. Are you going to reject them? Grandfather doesn't need you to give 100% of your energy to Tang Kor. All you need to do is watch over the foundation of the Tang family and pass it down from generation to generation. That would be enough. Tongning glanced at Elder Tang and then turned to look at Emoting. In the end, she placed her gaze on Tang Xian, who was on the verge of losing control, and nodded her head. Grandfather, I will do my best. Great, that's great. Elder Tang took a deep breath. He had finally resolved the biggest burden on his mind. Tongning had finally taken over Tang Kor. From now on, he no longer needed to worry about the future of Tang Kor. However, just as everyone was rejoicing over Tongning taking over as chairwoman of Tang Kor, a scream came from the crowd. A moment later, someone yelled, "Blood, she's bleeding." Tang Kor changes dynasty. Tongning takes over. Tang Xian miscarries. Sisterly fight reaches new heights. Tang Xian is kicked out of Tang Kor 3 times. Anger leads to miscarriage. Tongning is truly a winner in life. She is the top box office earner and the chairwoman of Tang Kor. At this moment, the hottest news in Beijing was that Tongning had become the chairwoman of Tang Kor and Tang Xian had a miscarriage and was hospitalized. Of course, it was true that Tang Xian had seen blood. But the child in her stomach was fine after the doctors tried their best to save it. Tang Kor's annual celebration was filled with climaxes. However, no one expected that it would end with Tang Xian being sent to the hospital. In the quiet VIP ward, Tang Xian was hooked up to a drip. She leaned weakly against the bed, her face pale and haggard. Elder Tang sat by her bedside with the support of his walking stick while Xia Yuling and Assistant Long stood on the other side of the bed. Although there were a lot of people watching over Tang Xian, she didn't want to see a single one of them. "Grandpa, don't you think you're too heartless?" After a short pause, Tang Xian suddenly said to Elder Tang in a raspy voice as tears rolled down her cheeks, "I am also your granddaughter." "Why must you dote on me so much? You've given Tongning the entire Tang core, yet you're so stingy as to leave me a single cent. How much hate do I have to feel?" After hearing Tang Xian's words, Elder Tang lowered his head and thought for a moment. He then lifted his head and said, "Right now, the most important thing for you to do is to recover. The doctor said you almost had a miscarriage." "Grandpa, how can you be so vicious?" Tang Xian. After hearing this, Xia Yuling couldn't hold back anymore. Just as she was about to speak up for Elder Tang stretched out his arm and stopped her. "Perhaps to you, Grandpa is cruel. After all, in the entire Tang family, Grandpa treats you the most ruthlessly," Elder Tang continued after a short pause. "But have you ever thought about the reason?" Tang Xian tilted her head and did not say another word. It seemed it was because of Elder Tang's actions that caused her to suffer the consequences of her actions. "Grandpa once loved you and even hurt Xiao Ning for over 20 years. But, in the end, what did Grandpa get in return? Xiao Xin, tell me honestly, what have you done to Xiao Ning?" Tang Xian froze. She did not dare to look Elder Tang in the eye because she felt guilty. "You've done a lot of wrong things in the past, but Grandpa has always turned a blind eye to them. But I never imagined you would actually collude with the hospital to remove Xiao Ning's uterus. Yuling too. All these years, she has been very responsible for the Tang family. Even though she isn't your biological mother, for the sake of making you feel better, she has hurt herself and her own daughter. But what did you do? You actually found someone to kidnap her." Hearing these two things come out of Elder Tang's mouth, Tang Xian's eyes grew wide. "Did Tongning tell you about this?" "I knew it from the start," Elder Tang interrupted straightforwardly. "From the start? In other words, every day, I face this evil granddaughter, yet I can't wait for her to turn around. All I can do is become more and more disappointed. Now, you no longer have the slightest bit of sympathy for me," Elder Tang said coldly. She thought about the show she had put on in the Tang family home and how she had toyed with the Tang family for so long. Tang Xian suddenly felt a chill down her spine. She even started to laugh at herself because of her own arrogance. "All of you must be looking at me like I'm an idiot, right?" It turned out, from the very beginning, she had always been transparent in front of the Tang family. "You guys are too good at pretending. That's why you were able to create an award-winning actress like Tongning. Why don't you go and act?" Tang Xian yelled at Elder Tang and the others. "Leave, all of you leave. I don't want to see you. Get lost." It turned out, this was the biggest humiliation that Tongning had given her. This humiliation made her want to find a hole to crawl into and bury herself alive. Elder Tang and the others did not say another word. They simply asked the nurse to take care of Tang Xian's health before they left the hospital and disappeared from Tang Xian's sight. "Miss Tang, you need to rest well." Speaking of which, the Tang family has been experiencing one happy event after another. From the photos I've seen on the news, Miss Tongning seems to be pregnant. Tang Xian's nurse suddenly said to Tang Xian after Elder Tang and the others left. "What did you say?" Tang Xian turned and asked. Although she tried her best to cover up her abdomen, it's easy for a normal doctor to see that she's obviously pregnant for a few months. Tongning was also pregnant? This was impossible. Because of this, Tang Xian immediately grabbed the latest newspaper from the nurse's hands and looked at Tongning's photo in detail. "Even if she found out that I got someone to remove her uterus, it's still a fact that she's infertile. How could she possibly be pregnant? She's lying." "Miss Tang, Although I'm already retired, I still have over 20 years of experience in medicine. If I say that Tongning is pregnant, then it must be true. It's up to you whether you want to believe it or not, the nurse insisted after seeing Tang Xian deny it. In reality, it wasn't hard to tell. However, when it was first rumored that Tongning was infertile, no one thought in that direction. Chapter 537. Tang Xian thought back to Tongning's recent appearance and sneered. Whether she's pregnant or not, does it make a difference to me? I already have nothing left. After all, the entire Tang family already knew what she had done. Would they still pity her? Of course not. If we expose this news to the paparazzi, we should be able to earn quite a bit of money, the caretaker joked. Over the past few days, as the new year approached, everyone's attention was focused on the Fei Tian Awards. The nature of the Fei Tian Awards was to reward professionals. So, this year's chairman was the Fei Tian Lifetime Achievement Award winner. Below him were 2 team leaders, as well as over 20 senior artists, actors, and directors. Elder Imo was one of the team leaders. As it was almost time to announce the nominees for the major awards, the judges had already begun their selection process. As for Tongning, Imo Ting only nominated WH for the Best Newcomer Award. The Best Newcomer Award. It seemed simple, but there were a lot of people competing for this award. In fact, most of them were equally outstanding. After 3 rounds of selection, the experts selected 10 films and held a final discussion. Finally, they used an elimination system to determine the final 5 nominees. Of course, it remained to be seen how WH would end up doing. Meanwhile, the public began to vote. As soon as the voting platform opened up, fans from all over the industry began to flock to the voting platform. And at this time, there was a rather big interlude. As Tongning's film had recently been released, thanks to her character, a lot of fans voted for her. It didn't take long for the voting platform to collapse. By the time the Fei Tian Awards voting resumed, the organizers discovered that a few of the nominees' votes had been cleared to 0. The organizers explained that this was because fans had used all sorts of methods to manipulate votes. What do you mean by manipulating votes? Does our Tongning need it? Long Jie sat in front of the computer. Seeing that other people had already received hundreds of thousands of votes, while Tongning's was still in the double digits, she couldn't help but complain. Up until now, the Fei Tian Awards has been fair. If the organizers say that votes were manipulated, then they were manipulated, Lu Che replied as he leaned against Long Jie with a cup of coffee in his arms. What do you mean? Long Jie glared. Seeing that his wife was getting anxious, Lu Che hurriedly chuckled. He put down his coffee cup and sat down beside her. Of course, I'm not saying Madam manipulated the votes. I'm saying someone maliciously manipulated the votes for their opponent. Thinking of this, Long Jie nodded her head. Is it really necessary to go to such lengths with just a 20% ratio? Why not? Lu Che explained. Perhaps the 20% that you don't care about is the deciding factor in the final score. The others aren't stupid either. As long as it's within their grasp, why wouldn't they fight for it? What should we do now? Long Jie looked at Tongning's score worriedly. She had always been a model manager and had never worked in the film and television industry, so she wasn't aware of the unspoken rules from the start. There's no way to find out who's behind this, Lu Che replied calmly. Then, doesn't that mean Tongning has no choice but to take the blame? It's not necessarily a bad thing to suffer a loss now, Lu Che said meaningfully. Long Jie did not understand what Lu Che meant. She simply trusted her husband from the bottom of her heart. However, she was still a little nervous. After all, this time, Tongning's award was a legitimate competition. Okay, trust the madam. It's time for us to get some rest. Lu Che noticed Long Jie was still worried, so he immediately carried her in his arms. Lu Che, by the way, there's something I want to discuss with you, Lu Che said gently as he placed Long Jie on the soft bed. He then sat down beside her and spoke gently. Actually, I've already spoken to my parents. I miss Dink. Long Jie froze for a moment before asking in surprise, Is it because I can't have children? How long have we been married? It's normal to not have children. There are plenty of couples that have been married for years without having children. Why can't you have children? Lu Che knocked on her head. Can you stop thinking that you can't have children? What if there's something wrong with me? You're a big girl. What's wrong with you? That's what I told my parents. I told them there's something wrong with me and told them to stop thinking about it. What? Long Jia raised her voice. How could you say that to your parents? What if I get pregnant one day? Did I go out and mess around? After hearing Long Jia's words, Lu Che let out a laugh. Your mouth has always been unscrupulous, but I remember you like children a lot. But compared to children, I like you more. Lu Che suddenly wrapped his arms around Long Jia and buried his handsome face into her neck. You probably don't know how important you are to me. I really don't want you to spend every day thinking about having a child. After hearing this, Long Jia froze, unknowingly. Her eyes gradually felt hot, and then tears easily flowed out of her eyes. Although they weren't big shots, Long Jia knew that the person in her arms was the most realistic form of happiness. Give birth my ass. I'm not giving birth anymore. I haven't had enough relationships yet. Lu Che sat up and smiled as he kissed away her tears. Just as he was about to move his lips downwards, Long Jia suddenly grabbed onto Lu Che's hands and said in a flattering tone, My period is here. This really isn't the right time. Lu Che flipped over and lay in bed. Why don't you bathe in blood? What are you thinking about? Hurry and go to sleep. Lu Che patted Long Jia on the head. After a simple bout of domestic violence, he hugged the woman in his arms and closed his eyes. He wasn't emoting, so he knew what he wanted to give Long Jia wasn't some award, empire, or glory. He wanted to give Long Jia a warm home. After the votes were cleared, the next morning, Tongning's votes once again caught up. Her fans were strong and loyal. But the next night, the votes were cleared again. In the living room of Hyatt Regency, Imo Ting was sitting on the sofa as he watched the results. His eyebrows furrowed slightly. I think we'll be able to lock onto our target soon. Tongning lay on Imo Ting's lap as she gently said, There's no way to defend against this. Even if they catch up to us, we may still be able to clear them one by one. But you must not know. If someone is determined to have manipulated the votes more than 3 times, their 20% score will be cancelled. The public won't care if you've been framed or not. All they know is, you have the most votes and your votes are cleared again and again. Chapter 538. As the saying goes, it's easy to dodge an open spear, but hard to guard against a hidden arrow. At this moment, Tongning finally understood that it wasn't that she had been plagued by misfortune, but that she was placed in a competitive environment and in a position like this. Even if someone else was in her place, as long as they got in the way of someone else winning an award, the result would still be the same. With this thought, she suddenly felt a lot more at ease. Perhaps, the person pulling the strings behind the scenes was determined to get one of their actors to win an award. But don't forget, Tongning was also participating in the selection this year. They were indeed resourceful, but that was because Imo Ting had never interfered with the Fei Tian Awards. Yet, this time, they had unknowingly made a move on Tongning and his wife. So, how could he let them off easy? Especially when the votes would be reset after 3 warnings. How could he allow someone to lower Tongning's score? Absolutely impossible. So, the next day, a dramatic scene appeared in front of everyone. All the actors involved in the voting were suspected of manipulating their votes. In fact, they were even more arrogant and crazy than the previous 2 groups of actors that had their votes reset. Because of this, not only did the Fei Tian Awards reset all the votes, they also made some adjustments to the voting methods. Each identity could only vote once, and votes from the same IP address were not counted as valid votes. As a result, everyone was once again at the starting line. Anyone that wanted to compete with Imo Ting needed to first consider whether they had the ability to do so. Otherwise, they would be asking for humiliation. That night, just before the final round of voting, Elder Imo gave Tongning a phone call. Is there anything you need grandfather to help with? I'll leave it to fate, Tongning replied with a smile. I've already done everything I could and everything I could. I have no regrets. This is the backbone of the Imo family. Elder Imo originally wanted to praise Tongning a little more, but Imo Ting snatched the phone from her hand. Old man, it's getting late. Ning needs to get some rest. Rascal, don't you want to help your wife out by letting me open the back door for you? Ning doesn't need it, Imo Ting replied confidently. Fine. Seeing Imo Ting's childish behavior, Tongning couldn't help but say, don't treat grandfather like this next time. I just want you to have a good rest. Besides, it's obvious that he's here to make himself known. Don't let him get what he wants. After hearing Imo Ting's words, Tongning couldn't help but laugh. In the end, she leaned into Imo Ting's embrace and fell into a deep sleep. The next day, at the Starshine Entertainment Building, it was time for the Fei Tian Awards Best Newcomer Acting Award to select the 5 nominees. Out of the 10 newcomers, only 5 would be nominated in the end. Of course, only 1 would receive the award. With Elder Imo participating in the judging, the judges entered the first round of voting. In the end, after the voting ended, the 5th and 6th ranked actors were tied together. The actor in 5th place had starred in a realistic film called Survive. Of course, in 6th place was Tongning. Tongning was ranked 6th. Elder Imo found this hard to understand. According to Tongning's acting, she was more than qualified to enter the top 3. So, why did so few people vote for her? I think we should continue with Tongning. After all, she is still a newcomer. As for the others, in terms of experience and acting, they are all above her. This is an indisputable fact. Indisputable? Elder Imo interrupted and scoffed. The Fei Tian Awards doesn't care about experience, it only looks at acting. Elder Imo, everyone sitting here is a veteran with decades of experience. Can't you tell who doesn't have acting skills? Tell me, out of these 10 people, who doesn't have acting skills? We all know about your relationship with Tongning, but I hope you can maintain a fair and just attitude. You want to talk to me about acting? Elder Imo refused to admit defeat, so he asked someone to show him 2 films. Of course, at a time like this, it was time to compare them. Since that's the case, let's take a closer look at their acting skills. There's no point in comparing the time they've been in the industry and the number of productions they've produced. So, I won't talk about that. Let's focus on acting. As soon as Elder Imo finished speaking, he instructed the staff to cut out the best parts of the 2 films and place them on the screen behind him. In Survive, the actress played the role of a blind technician. To highlight small details, she even wore her clothes inside out. When she was bullied, all she could do was throw her fists in the air. She vividly portrayed the pitiful life of an insignificant person sitting on the street. Then, in WH, the female author played the role of Tongning. Suspecting that she had been infected with a virus, she tested her body in the bathroom. From imagining herself turning into a monster to finally confirming that she wasn't infected, she let out a sigh of relief. The entire performance was smooth and complete. In fact, in just 3 minutes, the character's emotions had completely changed. Both actors' acting was impeccable. From the looks of it, it seemed like it would be difficult to determine a winner. But Elder Imo laughed after the film finished playing. It's not that I'm trying to protect anyone, but Tongning's acting is not a reason for you to dismiss her. Then, Elder Imo, what do you mean? Are you suggesting that we watch Survive? I didn't say that. This young lady's acting is indeed commendable and intelligent. What I mean is, are the actors at the top of the list truly impeccable? I don't understand why the 2 actors with the best acting are ranked 5th and 6th respectively. What are you guys trying to do? I know that the people in front of me are more experienced, so it should be their turn by now. But the Fei Tian Awards is cruel and realistic. It's not decided by experience. If you like to comfort someone, you can go down and buy them a candy. But we are in the judging hall of the Fei Tian Awards. So, try not to be careless. After giving his warning, Elder Imo continued to ask for information on the 4 actors at the top of the list. Since some people couldn't be impartial, he had no choice but to work overtime to discuss the matter. By the way, can you guys tell me why you're so determined to dismiss Tongning? Hearing Elder Mo's question, everyone fell silent. That's ridiculous. Is a child with such good acting skills blind? Elder Imo couldn't help but defend his granddaughter-in-law. Of course, Elder Imo had no idea that the trouble was yet to come. Chapter 539. Since you're sitting in this position and you're the judges, please show your professionalism and objectivity. What you should be concerned about is an actor's acting skills, not their qualifications. Since I've said all that, if you still insist on eliminating Tongning, I have no objections. But I hope that each of you can present a reasonable reason. That is the only way to convince me and the public. Elder Imo crossed his arms across his chest and leaned back. Grandfather Imo crossed his arms over his chest and leaned back. Let's start from the first one. Tell me your true thoughts. Everyone hesitated for a moment. Finally, an experienced film critic adjusted his glasses and said to Elder Imo, "The Phaeton Awards represents the highest form of art in the country and is currently the most professional award in the country. So, the person we want to choose not only needs to have excellent acting skills, but also needs to be respected by the public." Actually, the reason I reject Tongning is simple. She has a lot of enemies in the industry, has a bad reputation, is arrogant, and has broken the rules of the industry. When it comes to acting, out of these 10 nominees, which one of them doesn't have any acting skills? But some of them are honest people, while others are always on the headlines. She doesn't have a lot of films, yet she is always in the news. This is why I don't like Tongning. After hearing this, Elder Imo nodded his head and asked the others, "What about the rest of you? Do you all think the same way?" More or less. Me too. If this is what you mean by being objective, then the nominees are all worth digging into. Do you all really understand them? Elder Imo asked calmly. I would like to know, which part of Tongning's reputation isn't good? Everyone was suddenly stumped by this question, but they still insisted on their own opinions. Fine, since none of you have anything to say, it must mean you don't like Tongning and won't sincerely vote for her. I won't force you, but I will show you one last thing. After speaking, Elder Imo waved at the staff member. As he approached, he leaned over and whispered a few words in his ear. No one knew what Elder Imo was planning. All they could do was wait for the staff member to show them the highlights of WH. Elder Tang did not do anything else. He simply played highlights from the filming of WH on the screen. Everyone could clearly see how Tongning filmed the fight scene in the water, the escape scene in the jungle, and the behind-the-scenes practice. In order to film a film, she has to put in the same amount of effort as everyone else. In fact, she works even harder than the average actor. Do you guys think that her film can become a scene just by saying it? She also walked step by step. What right do you have to ignore the efforts of others with your own prejudice? I don't care about her other identities, nor do I care. But, as an actress, what's so special about her? Also, regarding her reputation, it seems we don't belong in the same world. From what I know, she has a huge fan base and is well-liked by everyone in Beijing. How come you guys are treating her as an enemy? Proud and arrogant? Can any of you give me an explanation? Everyone could not help but lower their heads. How about this? Regarding the Best Newcomer Award, we will reschedule it for another time. Think about it carefully, and we will make a final decision. Sometimes, it was hard to explain why people hated someone. Perhaps, they were afraid that Tongning, as a woman, was better and more perfect than a man. In that case, let's reschedule it to tomorrow. We will choose again tomorrow. Perhaps, everyone thought that Elder Imo was trying to protect Tongning, so they requested a redo. This was something that had never happened before in the history of the Phaeton Awards. No matter what time it is, my attitude will not change. After speaking, the middle-aged man in black glasses stood up and left the meeting room. This was not going to be a happy discussion. Of course, a situation like this wasn't uncommon at the Fei-Tian Awards. After all, everyone was experienced. For the sake of art, they always haggled over the smallest details. But if word of this got out, it wouldn't be a good thing. After all, Elder Tang and Tongning's relationship was obvious. No matter how much Elder Tang tried to avoid arousing suspicion, he would still be suspected of protecting his granddaughter-in-law. Is there any suspense left for the Fei-Tian Awards this time? It's definitely going to be Tongning. According to an insider, the results were originally set, but Elder Mo overruled it. From the looks of it, he really wants Tongning to win the award. Is the Fei-Tian Awards about to lose its original fairness? This time, the votes that originally belonged to Tongning were reset to 0. The nomination that originally belonged to Tongning was now backed by someone else. The situation was a little grim. President, what should we do now? Lu Che asked worriedly as he looked at some information in the CEO's office. I really don't understand why these people are so blind. Although Elder Tang has caused a lot of trouble, he has at least done something useful. At least, he has given Tongning another chance to vote. What if the results remain the same? Mo Ting did not respond and Lu Che did not dare to continue. After all, the problem this time was a lot more difficult than usual. We need to find a way to untie the knot in their hearts. He didn't expect everyone to be objective, but at least, he didn't want Tongning to be kicked out of the top 5 for some random reason. I never thought it would be so difficult to win a film award, Long Jie said as she supported Tongning as they strolled through the garden at Hyatt Regency. It's never been easy. It's just like my supermodel status, Tongning sighed. But doesn't it hurt? Originally, it was all justified. But now, even if you win the award, you will only feel comforted. It won't be as valuable as you thought it would be. I trust that the committee will give me a fair decision. Since the Fei-Tian Awards is the Fei-Tian Awards, the committee will definitely protect the honor that it deserves. You sure are confident. Long Jie smirked in disdain. If I were you, I would have died a long time ago. Tongning was well aware that if she were to win an award, there would be countless people fighting over it. Plus, she had never been one to sit around and wait for death to arrive. Taking advantage of Long Jie's anxious state, Tongning smiled and shook her arm. Don't worry, what belongs to me is mine. No one can take it away from me. You have a plan, don't you? Long Jie suddenly understood the meaning behind Tongning's words. I simply want to receive the fairness that I deserve, Tongning said with a deeper meaning as she turned her head. Chapter 540. The Fei-Tian Awards was a prestigious award, so there was no way they would expose any internal disputes. So, Tongning refused to believe the rumors from people in the industry. Every year, the Fei-Tian Awards had been won through fierce battles. But, every time, the organizers would end the competition with a fight. But, when it came to Tongning, how could she be judged in front of the public? This way, regardless of whether she received an award or not, she would still be criticized. If she didn't receive an award, people would say that it was a joke for her to return empty-handed after causing such a huge commotion. If she received an award, people would say that she was merely relying on the tree behind her to cool off and that it had no real value to her. But could this dilemma really be a coincidence? The brighter the place, the darker it was. Tongning understood this well. She didn't care who the other party was or what their motive was. As long as someone made the first move, she would not be afraid to fight back. Late at night, Hyatt Regency. The lights in the study room were still on. Mo Ting was still sitting in front of his computer, typing away. Tongning held her stomach as she peeked through the crack in the door and watched her husband sitting inside. Needless to say, it was definitely because of her. But she did not push open the door and enter. She knew, from the moment she gave up her role as a model to become an actress, Mo Ting already felt like he owed her. Plus, the incident this time was obviously a provocation to Hai Rue and provoking him. It's cold outside. Go back to your room and sleep. Mo Ting did not lift his head, but he knew Tongning was just outside the door. Tongning was a little surprised as a smile appeared on her face. I've been sleeping a lot lately. It's been a long time since I've seen my husband look so smart and strong. Emoting lifted his head, took a deep breath and waved at Tongning. Quick, come over here. Tongning pushed open the door and walked over to Emoting's side. She then threw herself into his arms. Hubby? Huh. Don't worry, I won't interfere with your PR this time. I also value the Feition awards a lot. I can't say that it doesn't matter if I don't receive an award or not. I'm not generous enough to give up on everything. Emoting wrapped his arm around Tongning and nodded his head. No one can stop you from getting what you deserve. These people must have forgotten who your manager is. Tongning looked into Emoting's eyes. The couple had long understood each other. So, how could she not know what Emoting was planning? Since the matter had already gotten out of hand and the internet was filled with all sorts of opinions, Hai Rui had to step out and say something. So, the next morning, Hai Rui released a statement to reiterate the impartiality of the Feition Awards. Firstly, they wanted to let everyone know that this award had been around for decades and was well respected and trusted by the public. So, it was impossible for the entire Feition Awards to be compromised because of a single person. Afterwards, Emoting released a fan letter with a simple title, Why I Helped Tongning Apply for the Feition Awards. In reality, Emoting's intention was to tell everyone why Tongning had the right to receive the award. He simply put it in a way that was easier to accept and wouldn't make people feel disgusted. In this letter, the winners of the Best Newcomer Feition Awards from the past 3 years were listed, as well as reviews that analyzed their acting. He had no intention of comparing Tongning to the other actresses currently participating in the selection. Because, even if Tongning had nothing to do with him, from an objective point of view, Tongning's acting was more than enough to crush the other actresses. Tongning is capable, but you can't deny that she has a strong background in Hai Rui. It seems, the competition for this year's Best Newcomer Award is quite intense. There's going to be a good show to watch. Elan is also amazing. Her acting as a blind person so well is quite commendable. I think the public is deliberately exaggerating Tongning's influence. She's already kept a low profile. The main thing is, her character is quite legendary. If things continue to go on like this, even if Tongning is the best, the organizers won't give her the award. I don't know why, but I feel a little wronged. Actually, those in the industry could tell that no matter who was competing for the Best Newcomer Award, Tongning would always be their biggest competitor. Not only because of Tongning's ability, but also because of Hai Rui and Emoting. The light that shone from her body was dazzling, but at the same time, it also made people feel fearful. Meanwhile, at the Su household, the heiress of Su Kor had just returned from a camping trip and was dressed in a full set of sports gear. Seeing her father and the woman she hated the most sitting in the living room chatting and laughing, she walked over expressionlessly. After greeting them indifferently, she turned around and left. However, she heard the woman say to her father, "Don't worry, I'll kill you. If it wasn't for your protection, I really wouldn't have known how I would have defeated Tongning." Second Master Su acted like a standard businessman as he held onto the woman in one hand and smoked a cigar with the other. You've been with me for so many years, yet your only hobby is acting. Today, you simply want to win an award. Why can't I satisfy you? Hearing the two flirting in the living room, the heiress scoffed. Although she still walked away, it wasn't as if she didn't take Tongning's name to heart. She clearly remembered the woman that helped her regain her pride and dignity at Tangkor's annual celebration. This was a woman that she admired from the bottom of her heart. It turned out, the news that Tongning had received over the past 2 days was all because of this woman at home. After changing into a new set of clothes, the heiress returned to the living room. Seeing the woman sitting alone on the sofa, she walked over and sat down opposite her. As a person, you can't always be honest. I never thought that you would continue to act so sneakily after receiving an award. What did you say? The woman's face immediately turned red as she glared at the heiress. Did I say something wrong? I admit that your acting is not bad, but deep down, You are afraid of Tongning, aren't you? Otherwise, you wouldn't have used my father's relationship to help you smear Tongning's name. Su Qingyan, show some respect. My current identity is your stepmother. If I remember correctly, you are younger than me, Su Qingyan scoffed. Plus, so what if I'm a stepmother? In this family, I am the only one that is related to my father by blood. If you have the ability, why don't you give birth to a child for him? You. Su Qingyan couldn't be bothered talking to the woman as she stood up from the sofa. However, before she left, she said to the woman, "Actually, I quite like Tongning. If I had to choose, I would choose to stand on her side." Chapter 541. Tongning was the chairwoman of Tangkor. Even if she didn't become an actress, it wouldn't have much of an impact. But when faced with someone as shameless as her stepmother, if she was in her shoes, she would also fight for the Fei Tian award to the very end. That's right, her stepmother was the female lead of Survive. She was half a year younger than her, yet she was currently acting as her stepmother. Her name was Yilan. Su Qingyan, don't forget that I am your elder. Don't get the wrong enemy. The biggest enemy of my life is already right in front of me. Miss Yilan, what do you think? After speaking, Su Qingyan crossed her arms and turned to leave. Of course, she wasn't lying when she said she was on Tongning's side. She didn't know why, but she felt like she and Tongning had hit it off the moment they met. It was easy for her to feel a sense of empathy from Tongning. So, she immediately gave Su Kor a phone call and asked for Tongning's contact details. For Su Qingyan, there was no other mistress in this world that was as shameless as Yilan. In order to become Mrs. Su, Yilan was willing to do anything. In fact, in order to please her father, she even went to Japan to learn some dirty and unpresentable things. Perhaps, because she was good at it, Yilan actually went to act. In fact, her acting skills were quite good. But, because of Yilan's ruthless methods, she didn't take anyone seriously. Of course, this included Tongning. In fact, she even had something to do with the votes that were being manipulated. Yet, a person like her that couldn't even be bothered to hide her evil side managed to charm her father. Soon, it was time for the second round of voting for the Best Newcomer Actress category. This time, everyone had a serious expression on their faces, like they were thinking about something important. I know that most of you have already decided on yesterday's result, but at least give me an answer. I will still maintain my original vote. Me too. Me too. Out of everyone present, around 10 people expressed that the results had not changed and they would still maintain their original vote. But did this mean that Tongning would never be able to win the Fei Tian Award for Best Newcomer? He didn't even get nominated? No matter what the result is, let's talk about it after the vote. Elder Mo said in an unhappy tone. However, I need to remind everyone that Hai Rue has quickly done their PR after the contents of our meeting were leaked. Of course, I am also curious as to how it was leaked. Elder Mo, we only agreed to hold a second vote because we respect you. However, this does not mean that you can unscrupulously suspect and insult us. How would we know why the contents of the meeting were leaked? Cut the crap. Let's start the second round. In reality, although the majority of the voters did not change their original intentions, there were a few that were seriously considering their decision, especially after seeing Hai Rue's fan letter. Tongning's acting skills were actually on par with the award-winning actors in the past. In other words, Tongning's acting skills were undeniable. As for prejudice, it was something that could be eliminated, even though there weren't many of them. However, for the second vote, it still played a role to a certain extent. In the end, Tongning came in 5th place and Yilan came in 6th. It was only a difference of 1 vote, but Tongning won by a narrow margin. The results were out. Although Elder Mo was still not satisfied with the results, at least Tongning was on the shortlist. As for the second round of voting, it would be conducted by another group. At this time, someone began to question Elder Mo. Elder Mo, I have nothing to say about the results of the vote, but I would like to know who you voted for in the end. Don't tell me you directly gave it to Tongning? What do you mean by that? Elder Mo asked. You've always reminded us to be fair and objective. But we want to know if you've done your job as a judge, the man said after a short pause. The man paused for a moment before continuing. If you want to convince us, it's easy. You simply need to cancel Tongning's vote. After all, although you've been fair your entire life, will you become muddle-headed as you get older? By canceling Tongning's vote, she would return to being the same as Elon. Although Elder Imo wanted to refute, he could tell from the looks of the crowd that they agreed with the man's suggestion. So, Elder Imo smiled calmly. So, all I have to do is cancel one of my votes? Of course, the man replied confidently. Okay then, Elder Imo said before he turned to the staff that was in charge of revealing the results. Cancel my vote. Everyone assumed that Elder Imo would vote for Tongning. But, in reality, Tongning's votes did not change. Instead, the ones that changed were the first and second place actresses. Elder Imo had voted for someone else, not for Tongning. What else do you guys have to say? Everyone fell silent, including the person that asked Elder Imo to cancel his vote. Since the new results had already been announced, everyone should comply. Since you have nothing else to say, then the nominees will be confirmed. A portion of the people did not think the result was a big deal, but a portion of the people that opposed Tongning scoffed in their hearts. So what if she was nominated? The lowest number of votes meant that Tongning had the least chance of receiving an award. But even if she had the least chance, it didn't mean she didn't have one. The next group of judges would be even stricter, and no one would be able to influence their decision. So, Elder Imo no longer needed to worry about Tongning's situation. In reality, after Hairue's PR handled the matter, the public accepted the fact that Tongning had a chance of receiving an award. After all, Tongning's ability was clear for all to see. As long as Hairue emphasized Tongning's ability over and over again, they would be able to fend off most of the rumors. This was the result of the Mo family's grandfather and grandson's hard work. One did it for his wife, while the other did it for his granddaughter-in-law. As long as it was for their family and loved ones, they were willing to do anything. Of course, they simply wanted to give Tongning a fair chance. After all, they had Tongning's back. Although she was protected, she would also be questioned. Tongning was obviously such an outstanding actress. For the sake of acting, she worked harder than anyone else. But, because of Hairue and the fact that she was Emoting's wife, everyone had higher expectations for her. You're tuning in to the Romance Rendezvous YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.